Well, I thought there's no telling what I'll say.
Download.
All right, good afternoon. It is 5 p.m., Tuesday, June 18th. This is Special City Council Workshop. I'd like to call the meeting to order and acknowledge that the press and public were duly notified of the meeting in accordance with Freedom of Information Act. Nicole, you want to do roll call?
Absolutely. Councilmember Campson?
Here.
Councilmember Pierce?
Here.
Councilmember Anderson?
Here.
Councilmember Ward?
Here.
Councilmember Goshen? Councilmember Myers?
Here.
Councilmember Hahn?
Here.
Councilmember Carroll? Mayor Pounds?
Here.
You have a quorum?
Thank you. First item, citizens' comments.
Julie Nessler?
I'm going to respectfully request that I have the same opportunity to have my, thank you, audio on, camera to my face. I'm going to read what I have to say because I'm extremely upset about this and I want you to hear me clearly. This is about, I have no idea where your humanity lies. This is for all of you to hear me clearly. You remain reckless with the safety of our community. You have accepted the fact that it's okay to operate at a resource deficit. You continue to accept that we go without resources on our island due to auto aid. Do you know that the reputation, I'd love to have her attention too. Do you know that the reputation out there is that the Isle of Palms Fire Department is the busiest Mount Pleasant Fire Department station? You pat yourself on the back announcing that you hired paramedics last year, but you failed to tell the public that due to DHEC regulations and medication control, that in fact cannot perform the life-saving services. It took somebody dying at the dinghy to correct the narrative. You knowingly continue to put the employees at risk. You disregard the advice of our police chief and our fire chief when it comes to the connector configuration. Not surprised, and sadly, there was a very bad head-on collision last week. There's no buffer. There's no report of it also. And now you've done the same to contractors. You've knowingly removed the life-saving device from the docks. Ironically, while down there at the marina one day, I saw workers were manually lifting the posts that were intended for the swings. A worker lost his balance, he called for help, and another worker went and retrieved a boat to put under the dock for safety. Today, giving you the benefit of the doubt, I checked again. Irony again. A kid was fishing, the wind took his hat, and he tried to reach off the dock to grab it while somebody held on to him. Don't believe me? Check your security cameras, and I have pictures. This could have been disastrous. We're told to see something, say something. Well, I did. I saw something, I said something, and I did something for the safety of our community. I donated a life ring. I watched you deny it when I tried to donate it privately, and now I've watched you take it away. For the record, Councilman Ward supported my efforts 110%. I even arranged for it to be hung as there seemed to be no sense of urgency from council. It did not cost you a thing, but a drowning could cost someone everything. I don't want to hear excuses that it's not the city's responsibility. I had a nice conversation with Sarah Reed from OCRM about that subject. And in closing, something that has been on my mind that makes me so angry. Shame on all of you for backing the statement with your silence that the fire department's only problem is the lack of excitement. It's a total disregard and disrespect for the men and women that are our lifeline, and they are owed an apology. My freedom of speech does not give you the permission to have continued retaliation against my family. The dock is open, workers are on the dock, and I want my life ring up on the dock. Please. Thank you.
That's all.
Thank you. Next item, special presentations. First, we'll hear from Thomas and Hutton regarding the increasing level of protection for Waterway Boulevard path elevation. You'll recall when we last had this conversation, we were projecting to construct at a 6-foot protection level. That was about $1.2 million project that we were doing. You also recall we were waiting on a FEMA grant to pay for that particular project, about $1.2 million, give or take. Given the December nor'easter, we had asked staff and Thomas and Hutton to go back and look what it would take to get to a 7-foot protection level along that part of the island. So we've got Rick with us today. Thank you for the work I know you've done with our staff over the last few weeks and months. And presentation was put out earlier today, and it's on the screen. So Rick, we'll let you go.
Okay. So,
Do you want to sit here? I think you can
fine.
sit here.
now, who's gonna?
Me or him?
Oh, you can bring the clicker.
He's got it.
So,
We're good.
I was here in March, I believe. I was here in March.
Yes.
I believe, and gave you an update on the pathway project, which I like to call now the pathway tidal flood mitigation project, since it is going to provide not only a new pathway but a mitigation to the tidal flooding that we've been having here on the Isle of Palms. This is a graph of what happened in December. So that high of 6.72 feet on our NAVD 88 scale would have overtopped what we were planning to do. So we were planning to go to a 6-foot level of protection based upon some feasibility and some, cost analyses of what we could do on the pathway alignment. One of the challenges is if you raise that pathway, there are homes that are facing on that pathway, so you're essentially blocking water from those homes by raising that pathway. So there is some micro drainage and flooding conditions that you have to consider along with the macro flooding conditions. So that was what was driving the 6.0 recommendation and where we were headed. We did get a little bit of a happy circumstance, if you will. Wild Dunes is planning to shut down their golf course in 2025 and rework a good amount of that. Thomas and Hutton is actually lucky enough to be working with them too, so we're actually going to be working both of these projects, which does allow us to kind of coordinate the work that could be done on the golf course that would benefit the city. This is a graph to kind of show you where that nor'easter elevation, there's not many, and this is from the last 20 years or so, there hasn't been many elevations above 6, but there has been some, and it is getting more and more frequent as we do have sea level rise and climate change. This, again, kind of shows more of a return frequency. We probably would like to call it a risk. So we're moving that risk of flooding from, again, in that 25-year return risk to that 100 year. So you get a lot more protection by going from 6 to 7. 7's still going to get overtopped by some hurricane. Hugo, I think we plotted like a elevation 9. So of course that would have been a huge overtopping. So what are we talking about when this kind of tide happens? So this is the yellow area is if a 6.0 tide approached from the intercoastal waterway. You don't see anything the intercoastal side of the pathway, but all that yellow area is area that would be protected from that tide from penetrating inland and inundating these areas. So we have been working with the city. We have 3 big projects that have tide protection on it. So at 32nd, Forest Trails area, and then 41st, which is wrapping up as we speak. So that would be what the 6.0 project would do. This one, so the blue, and it doesn't quite show up as much, and it's a different graphic, but the blue is where the 7.0 protection extends to. And so, and then if you compare the two, you kind of get what's that delta? It gets you a fairly large delta. A lot more properties, a lot more homes, a lot more roads are brought into the protection of what would be the Waterway Boulevard Pathway Flood Mitigation Project. So with this in mind, we looked at the opportunity to take our protection. It's mainly on the end, say from 32nd towards 41st is the really low areas. The areas between 21st and 32nd are fairly high, so that's areas really not a challenge engineering wise. So that area is, we're not going to talk a lot about that. But so looking at the golf course and what we could do on the golf course, we broke up little sections of what we have to do to make everybody protected to elevation 7. So we laid out, okay, well, what if we raised this golf cart path? What if you just filled in this low area? What if you made this little wall? Or in some cases, this very big wall. So we added those throughout the project. So we have 6 or 8 sheets of little tiny projects. Some of them, most of them are on the golf course. Some of them are still in the pathway alignment. But by going to the golf course, you get to get that protection a lot cheaper and more feasible, because, for example, at this location, you can see the 4 houses on the Waterway Boulevard side. You know, we bring the protection around the back of them. If we kept it in the right-of-way, in the pathway alignment, the protection would be in front of the house. So the house would be subject to the flooding, to the tidal inundation. So again, we looked at all these, we put them on here, we designed them conceptually, and then we costed them on what it would cost to move from, you know, what we were currently planning to a 7.0 type project. You know, and these are just some schematics of, you know, some fill, raising a golf course path with fill. One of them was a little more aggressive, where we would build like two walls and then fill it, because we just have such a limited area to do this raising. So we laid all that out, and then we came up with this cost. Now, to do it all, it adds quite a bit to the project if you want to do it all today. But if we want to approach it in a more systematic phased manner, we could save some of these projects or some of these segments for the future, because a lot of them do require some cooperation with some private homeowners and things that we would have to get into. So that is just going to take much longer to get to. But if we take the opportunity we have today and work with the golf course, we could get this, you know, project done with that 7.0 protection built into the plan for, you know, relatively lower cost than if we tried to raise it on the pathway or do it some other way. What we have recommended, and we work with staff, is going ahead and doing that, working with the golf course, getting it on there, getting all the other protections in there, but we would leave several, and like bricks in the wall would still be missing that would have to get done over the years. Now, it doesn't mean the whole system is just worthless. You get protection, mainly, you know, areas are going to have protection, and some areas are going to allow water in, but it's going to come in at a much slower pace. We are raising the protection level because that area is probably higher, so the low areas are getting raised, but some of the areas are not. But we are getting up to the 6.0 protection, but we have the ability to move it to the 7.0, you know, fairly straightforward, not cheaply, but straightforward. But maybe with a private-public partnership with some of the homeowners, we could work on that in the future. So that's essentially what we're recommending in a 15-minute presentation.
And Rick, let me ask you two things real quick. I'm guessing in the work y'all have done, even at the 6-foot level, there are some challenges on that pathway between trees and layout and driveways and everything else.
Absolutely.
And then if I look at your cost estimate here, and using your section numbers 7, 14, and 21, I mean, that's like $3 million of the additional cost. Is that, are there options as opposed to what you've priced out here? I mean, is this like a gold standard, if you will, and are there other things we could do or not so much?
We've been criticized in the past for being gold standard.
It's not a bad thing.
No, but we like to bring a standard of care to it, and that the project needs to last. There are options, cheaper options. Maybe they don't last as long, or maybe they have more maintenance
Gotcha.
requirements and things like that. So there are potential ways to maybe, again, it was also looking at. A lot of them are like up against private residents, and it was like trying to take the least amount of land impact there. So, it might be a more expensive option, but it has a smaller footprint. But maybe that homeowner just says, oh, I'd rather have no flooding.
Yeah.
And a little bit more of my property to put this burn in, if you will. So that might be a way to go.
Jan and Scott?
Following up on this.
Jan, hit them on the mic.
Sorry. All right. On this cost estimate table, which I'm intrigued, first of all, I think this is a terrific project, and the 7-foot elevation, what I like the best about it is it seems to pretty much solve any of those flooding issues that we have for forest trails.
Right.
6-foot one is probably the worst of them, but not all of them. On this table here, it says that the cost of the 7-foot elevation is roughly a $6 million project. Is that right?
Yes.
That's the number at the bottom of the table,
with
right?
a lot of caveats to that, but yes.
Okay.
Caveat says could go higher. Or
Okay.
could go lower?
There's property that we would have to possibly negotiate for, or we'd have to get like 10 or 12 other private owners to possibly participate in the project by
Okay.
donating easements or things like that. There's a lot of complications. and
Yeah, can we get back to
Yes,
what I
yes.
was talking about, please?
Yes.
All right, so we've got a $6 million project. If we do it while we're doing the waterway project now at the 6-foot elevation, it's a $2 million add-on to whatever the 6-foot elevation project cost. Is that correct? So we're saving $4 million by doing a 7-foot elevation now rather than doing it piecemeal or something later on, or something like that.
So the original project was 100% in the pathway alignment. So what we are doing, because you cannot go to a 7-foot elevation in the pathway alignment because of mainly cutting other people off from their houses by their driveways going. So it's not apples to apples. You can't say.
I'm talking cost.
Yeah.
That's all, I know it's more extensive, I know it's more involved for the 7-foot elevation, but the difference in the cost is basically a cost savings of roughly $4 million. Is that what you're saying?
Correct. Yes, absolutely.
If we do the $6 million project now, all the way to 7 feet, or we do a 6-foot elevation, it'll be 1.2 million or 2 million?
So I think,
But you lose the opportunity to ever raise it anymore.
You will have to redo the whole project.
You have to redo the whole
Correct.
project, and it would cost a lot more than.
and I think to summarize the cost, the original estimate at 6 and the original alignment was roughly 1.2 million. And I'm going to paraphrase this or summarize it by saying the kind of recommended path is 7 feet, so kind of the Cadillac path.
Right.
But with a few bricks missing out of it, that gets you to roughly 2 million. The $6 million project is not one that we think we can do in the near future. So that's kind of not even being considered because it requires so much coordination with and I think it's 13 owners specifically. There's kind of 13 property owners that would need to participate in some way. And quite frankly, the expense, the additional $4 million is really on those 13 properties only. So that's kind of what's led us to
Okay.
thinking that the $4 million kind of seawall option around those 13 properties, we can probably do through some kind of case-by-case, working on each
Okay.
property with each owner to suit each owner. The city staff has been having similar dialogues with the neighbors back in the Myrtle neighborhood. In that neighborhood, we've offered, that we would build a very kind of inexpensive berm in exchange for the easement to put that berm, or we would give the option for them to do a seawall if they would rather have, a much more kind of sophisticated and powerful seawall, they could do that and not give the city an easement. So we think that for those 13 properties, we would need to, over time, work through each one of them. We've been contacted already by a number of them. I mean, we're in conversations. These are obviously the very lowest parts of that path now, so they're the ones getting water under their house in the nor'easter and similar events.
So are you
All right,
saying,
Scott,
Hang
can I
on.
finish, let me finish
Yeah,
one
and
thing,
Scott.
and then we can go, then I'll be on. So the options are, we've got a $1.2 million 6-foot elevation waterway path that we're considering.
Correct.
If we can go to a 7-foot option with just the basics,
Few bricks missing.
few
2
bricks
million.
missing, for $2 million.
Correct.
Correct.
Okay, and the Cadillac costs 6.
That's
Correct.
correct.
But
The
that's-
100% with all 13 owners participating and having these sheet
Okay.
pile walls would be the 6 million that we
All
don't
right.
think we can really get to.
But we can only get to 7 if we leverage Waldoons and their golf course and their renovation, because most of the elevated areas in that plan are either on the golf course path or the golf course landscape.
Okay, got it. All right, and the maps that you showed for the 7-foot elevation, is that the Cadillac?
Yes.
Okay,
And there's one, so.
Can you go back to that one,
Yeah.
Rick? Are you able to?
Yeah, and again, Jan, the 3 areas that are driving, to Douglas's point, that are driving $3+ million are shown on here as walls, revetments, whatever you want to, what do
okay.
you call it?
Yeah, that
Rick?
seems
Yeah.
to be what those stand out as a.
Here's,
as a wall.
so
Okay,
this is,
Bad. Watch your pronunciation.
So that's 32nd.
32nd, and so there's a segment of houses that we would have to do a wall because the wetland comes right up to the backs of the houses. And so to put them in the protection into, we're using the golf course on this side, we're using the golf course on that side, there's a brick missing here for roughly 3 homes. So we could close it off, what we would, is a sheet pile wall, like we said, because it has such a small footprint. So that's a large cost, that's
What-
segment 7. And
That's 7? Okay.
Number 7.
Yeah.
all right.
And then there's 2
That-
other segments that are,
So that section that Rick was just showing us, the estimated cost, it's roughly $950,000 just for that wall that is shown behind 3 homes.
So Rick,
That's
one was,
41st.
you had 2 on that same sheet. And there's the other one.
There's the other one.
Hang
this
on,
one,
hang on.
this
Good.
one is.
People lined up here.
Farther down, this is the new forest trail.
We're on that.
slide? I was trying to clarify something.
And on the cart path that goes behind the houses, we would say, let's just raise that cart path, but you can't raise it like and expand it, so it has to be done on a wall, so it costs a little bit more. And then this one house right here is right up against the wetland, so we would have to do a sheet pile. This segment, 21 and 22,
So
it
20
adds an
That's $1.5
expensive
million
amount
plus.
to.
It's almost 2 million.
That's
Yeah,
almost,
2 million.
yeah,
$2 million
1.8.
Blair, real
So
quick,
again,
on this
again,
slide.
That's, yeah. And then, the next segment.
Hang on, Rick. Yeah.
Yeah, I'm sorry.
On that slide, if we went with the 6-foot elevation only, is it the same path or are you going in front of the houses on 6?
Going in front of the
In
house.
front.
All right, so,
Yeah.
okay, thank you.
Yes.
On the 6.0 elevation option, it's all along the existing Waterway Boulevard path. The 7.0 elevation includes very few portions within the path that would be able to be elevated up to 7.5. So the protection happens behind the houses along the golf course
7.0.
at 7.0. Not-
Scott.
Did I say 7.0?
You said 7.0.
You're up, man. Did you get your question in here?
I better get it going. So my first question is,
Well, no, I'm
no,
just,
go ahead.
I'm gonna do one clarification after he asks his
You
question.
sure?
Yeah.
Yeah.
you sure? You can go ahead.
We did add extra drainage in the project from the 6.0 to the 7.0 plan based upon some of the flooding that happened as a result of the December 17th issue.
Yeah.
Mainly, we added 2 segments of drainage up closer to 21st, 22nd,
Correct.
23rd Avenues along
Scott.
Waterway Boulevard.
Please
So-
ask your question.
So the 1.2 solution is in front of the houses, gets us total coverage, including the houses, and everybody's covered up to the 6-foot protection level. Is that fair to say?
No.
No.
Everybody that is the Waterway Boulevard side of the pathway
Right.
are not protected.
Okay. So then, and how many houses is that? That's the 13?
13, plus
No.
or minus. No, more than that.
More than
More
that.
than that.
Do we know how many?
So maybe, can you, to that question, maybe put this slide up, Rick, that shows the delta of the 6 between, the comparison between
There.
the 6
No.
and 7?
So,
Rick, do you mind holding the mic like you're Britney Spears?
You don't have to dance, though.
can you hear me? So these houses would be added to the protection. These houses would be added to the protection. These houses would be added to the protection. So that's, I'm going to say 6, 10, 25.
But gradually you see all that yellow
On the other side.
on the other side of
Yeah.
in the basin.
And then all these people, these people would be added to the protection because they're protected at 6, but they're not protected at 7. So again, they would be added to the protection. Everybody that is not blue but yellow would be added to the protection by going to 7. Now,
But the yellow is not flooding at 6.
it's flooding at
At
7.
7.
Right, but it's not like all of the yellow spaces at a 6-foot flood are
No.
inundated.
I had
No.
another
No.
couple questions, but.
No, all the blue spaces are inundated at the 6.0.
Yes.
Could you go to the second slide? If you wouldn't mind.
This second slide.
Kind of have to point it at her.
Yeah, right, I'm sorry, the probability slide. There you go.
Right.
So if I'm reading this right, we're at the 6 foot, we're in roughly the 97th percentile of we're gonna have protection. And those 2 above it were, I think those other storms were 1989 and 1940 on the other slide. So that 6% gives us a 97% probability or 96% probability we're gonna be okay.
Currently,
Right.
not 20 years.
No, I understand that.
Yeah.
And what we're buying with the extra 5 or, 4, or, okay.
But that 2% is pretty darn bad.
I understand.
Okay.
So the other question I had was the source of the water in your slides. Is the only source of flooding on those slides that you show where the flooding occurs, is it only coming from that area? Or do those areas inside inside that area, would they get flooding from other sources that aren't going to be protected by these?
Well, there's always a possibility to have a compound flood, which would be a tidal event and a large rain event on top of that tidal event. So we're only showing what happens on a tidal event. So if we had a hurricane that passed that didn't put a lot of rain on us, but put a big surge on us, that would protect us from that. Then if rain fell on it, one of the better things is we preserve all the storage behind the protection for that rain to go fill in. So again, you get a little more protection from rainfall, that combined type storm. Because if you don't protect it, it gets filled by tide water, and then the rain comes on it, and then it floods even higher. So you are getting like almost a little more protection from rainfall-driven flooding by preserving the storage in the system, and that's been our whole strategy as we have been redoing all these outfalls. We're stopping the tide from penetrating up into the island and filling up these ditches and these low areas, and so this pathway does it, but to a higher elevation, either to 6 or to 7, island wide, not just at the outfalls.
Yeah, I'm just trying to figure out what are we getting incrementally, is we'll call it redundancy or extra protection for the extra money. And it sounds like we're getting a 2% protection over what we would get previously. And I guess the other question then is, if we're getting protected 97% of the time, was that other 2%, we might be flooded, but we don't know what the ramifications of that would be. Some of that water would potentially be stopped at the 6 foot, but we would be inundated over the 7 foot.
Correct.
Okay.
That's
Elizabeth?
I don't even know what I wanted to ask. Well, I did know. The people that have approached you, who the 7 foot would protect, are there any sort of federal, excuse me, that was so awful. Any sort of federal, is there any kind of funding beyond the city? Because, I think I realized that we've said that $4 million of that cost basically is attributed to just those homes. But if they've expressed an interest, are there alternatives? Are there grants or something that we can pursue that, I would hate to.
Absolutely. Right now, we're in for a grant to fund the 1.2. So right now, there's a grant, and if we could demonstrate a good benefit cost ratio, there's other grants, and it doesn't even have to be a benefit cost. It could just be, there's other grants you could pursue. Going to 7 in this relatively easy approach gives us opportunity to work on, like we said, we could work on that over time and pursue those grants, which come, periodically, and they're not, not every year, they're sometimes every other year or whatever. And even on the HMGP side, those are related to if a hurricane comes through. So again, don't hope for a hurricane, but that does bring extra money after hurricanes that you could apply for. So there is opportunity to apply for those grants to seal this off. I think you gotta, there's all kinds of caveats. There's those easements have to be X, and the design has to be this and that. So that brings strings attached to it.
Thank you.
So if we were to go with the, today $2.1 million approach, are we getting, with the wall with the bricks missing, are we getting the same amount of overall protection for a 6 foot tide or 6 foot flood?
Yes.
So at 6 feet, we don't have holes in the wall.
That's correct.
So we would be getting equal protection to the we're at 1.5 now, or did it go up a little bit?
1.2.
1.2, plus we've added some additional drainage and waterway between 21st and 23rd, which takes us to maybe 1.6. These are all estimates.
And that is how much of that's being funded by a grant?
We requested a grant for 90% of the original cost of
1.2.
1.1. So we
1.1.
anticipate 900,000 to be covered by FEMA.
grant, yeah.
So our out-of-pocket at 6 feet is going to probably be 500,000?
Roughly, correct, at the 6.0 elevation.
And our out-of-pocket, if we go with the holy seven,
Let's call it enhanced 6
is,
feet.
is going to be
It's not though.
a million.
So if you look at the cost estimate, the list, removing those holes that are the bulk of that $6 million cost would
That's
be
the-
about $500,000 more, $567,000 more to do the 7.0 elevation with the challenges.
But to Katie's point, out of pocket's $1 million. Rough
Correct.
numbers.
It would
Yeah.
be in addition to the 1.1.
But
The
then
holes
we
in the
have,
wall
but then we
But
have,
we have
we have
more,
holes, and so there's no protection over the 1.5.
Oh, there's got to be.
well, but,
Well, there's-
but then we do have the potential of making it
Seven
up to 7 for overtime.
over time.
Yeah,
And
so
then,
I get that, all right, that all,
and
that makes sense to me. So
You-
my question, so to me, that is kind of the way to go. I mean, we're talking 500,000 gives us, but we have more opportunities and options in the future. We're not locking ourselves in. And as you just explained, we're having this larger field where we can keep water, basically. My one concern at this point is, it sounds like most of this is going to be in the Wild Dunes Golf Course. I'm assuming that they're okay with this.
we have had conversations with them, and they are on
Okay.
board. You know, there's things to be worked out, but yes. And then we
B,
got to
what
go
about,
quick.
what happens with maintenance of that? If we, 5 years down the road, have issues, what happens then?
So those are the details that would need to be worked out with Wild Dunes.
Okay,
The
so that's being investigated.
Yeah, and I would say beyond the kind of those challenges, timing is probably the hardest one. I mean, they have a very timing, and they are going to use their contractor. They're not going to be agreeable to kind of a low bid, request for bid. They're going to have their contractor. So those are the big hurdles that we are anticipating.
To shape the course and
Yeah.
put it in.
And the other thing is their agreement to us utilizing or them elevating their golf course to help us achieve that maximum level of protection only benefits the city. This does not benefit the golf course in any way. If you look at the plans, all of those are just covering right above the homes that are on the intercoastal side of waterway. So there's really no benefit to their
Well, and
golf
that
course
kind
to
of
do
goes to
that.
my point, though, of, that's why I'm asking, and it sounds wonderful. I'm not a golf course designer, but, I just watched the US Open. There's a lot that goes into it. And there's, if the golf course designer thinks that doesn't want a berm in this location and we do, or if everybody's hitting off this one thing and they want to move something because it's not making the golfers happy, what happens then? Like, those are,
Most, if not, I'm going to say all of what we are is in non-playable areas. We're really not. I mean, most of them are elevating cart paths. So the cart
Okay.
paths are like, and like we're talking, this high.
okay,
That-
not like,
We're not like doing.
For those of you at home, that's like 2 to
Literally
3
a
feet.
foot.
sorry.
Yeah, it's not this high. It's because they already have fill. Their cart path is higher than Waterway Boulevard. And so we're just taking that cart path up a little bit higher. Just gonna shape it in. So I'm gonna say all of the work is outside of the golf plan. I am a golfer, so I would get really mad if they put a berm right across the middle and, stop my drive.
That's where my drive goes,
Yeah. So,
every time.
so, and we have talked with the golf course, the maintenance people and the Lowe's group, and we explained the situation to them, and they're on board. They're amenable, but we're going to start tearing it up, X date, you guys got to be ready, and we've got to work all this out by then. So there are some pressures there.
Which is when?
So
May-
their plan is
May-ish.
next year, but they also need permits for this work, the same permits we would need to obtain for our project. So permitting is really the unknown in terms of the timing, when they would be ready for construction.
Same agency, same path. Scott?
Let's say we go forward with the 2.1 million 7-foot solution, and we can't get past the next step. And for whatever reason, we've got easements to get, we've got to get the homeowners in on the funding side of it, all the planets need to align, et cetera. What does the map look like, and what hole do we have in the what bricks will we continue to miss? Or what are our options in the event that we can't get past that next step? What would we have?
Well, I mean, again, the project is going to seal all the drainage improvements. So all the drainage, existing drainage that goes out right now is a conduit for the water to come in and flood inland. So that's going to be in the project anyway. It's going to be a brand-new path in it, 8 feet wide, really nice looking path. A lot easier to than the narrow one. And we would, I guess we would drop back and punt and go to the 6.0.
For the
And-
sections that you couldn't do this?
Yeah,
on?
for where we couldn't do it, yeah.
That would be Plan B.
Yeah, that would be Plan B.
Rick, can you get the differential inundation map up on the screen? Because Scott, to your point, I mean, we've talked a lot about, if we're able to do this project, we leave the bricks out, what does that map now look like? And we think it's kind of 80% what it looks like there. There's clearly.
97% of the time.
So like from this side, this way, the being so high, we've only got like a couple of tiny spots that we're gonna do anyway, so that's fine. Where the project really starts to gain speed is this side, I'm sorry. But there again, you're saying all the flooding that's gonna happen has to come in here, so it's not gonna penetrate all the way in here because it doesn't have that opportunity to come wholeheartedly across Waterway Boulevard. It's only got this hole and that hole.
Some of these holes,
That's where the water goes.
if you look at this hole, it has to get across another high berm. So this is probably going to stay pretty localized right there. So we think that the majority of that yellow would stay protected. But around there, kind of around a little radius around each of the, and it's 3 holes. It's 12 properties, 3 holes. And we think it would be minimally pass through if we left those 3 holes open for a period.
Those people would continue to be at the same risk of it. Those people would still be at the same risk of flooding that they have today.
So they're not at a higher risk by leaving, so that area around the potential holes to the 7.0 elevation plan would not be at a higher risk of flooding in the same conditions pre or post project.
Correct.
Right, Blair?
If we spend the $2 million for this 7-foot thing, do you have a price for then plugging the holes at the 6-foot level?
No, the whole 6 foot
They're
will already
not
be
plugged at the 6 foot.
I know,
That's
do we have a
yeah.
price to do that? Because water will find the lowest common denominator,
No,
and
the-
we're gonna have rivers of water trying to get off this island.
No, the path that's there will protect 6 feet.
No, as it currently sits.
No, when
I
we
mean, 'cause
redo the
like,
path.
we have major outfalls now. This is a twin 48-inch pipe, big
Okay,
old canal. This is a twin 54-inch pipe. This is like a twin 48-inch pipe. We upsize all those outfalls, so all the water is going to be channeled to the outfalls.
That's,
You're talking about
be
getting
be
in?
that as it may, you've said that there are holes where water's gonna come in and then potentially would go out.
Only at
As it does today.
only at a 7 foot tide.
No, you're saying as it does today, so we would have to raise the golf cart path to 6 feet in front of the houses for those few
they're-
holes? Is
they're-
there a price for doing that and not do the 7 foot everywhere else, and where we can't do the 6 foot in front of the houses, we at least have 6 feet and we've saved $4 million? That's the question.
Well, or do we also, you know, who knows how long it's gonna take to get the extra 4 or 5
That's
million
exactly-
bucks and the
yeah.
easements and
And-
everything, if it's
we-
nominal to do the 6 foot,
Do
does
it.
it,
Yeah.
does it make sense to do
We
it?
could answer that question. I believe it is going to happen naturally because their lots in their houses are a minimum of 6 already. So
that's what we need
it,
to
it,
know.
I mean, we could certainly double check that and make sure that that's the case. But I think that would possibly,
Would it be hard to price it out, Rick, just to see what it would be? That, on those
well, we
statutes?
might not need to price it out. It might be there already, is what I'm
see, I
saying.
see.
I'm saying like that
Yeah,
by
but
them
if-
being,
If it's not, let's price it. So
Okay,
That's all we're
absolutely.
saying. Let's just make sure everybody's at 6 feet.
Yeah.
All right, we need to move along
Get a Snickers
to some
bar.
extent.
Got a
Jimmy.
question.
Steak knife.
Before Hugo hit, we didn't have nearly the flooding problems that we have now. And after, it wasn't, the flooding problems today are not direct cause of Hugo, but it's because the character of the island changed. And people are building much larger houses, a lot more swimming pools, a lot more concrete driveways. The day of the J.C. Long 2-bedroom, 1-bath house is long gone, although I still have one that I like very much. But it's no secret, it's probably that what I hear more than anything from the citizens of what they would like for us to look at is protection from flooding, not just today, but in the future. And you had a probability chart up there a little while ago, and it was talking about Hugo had busted like 9-0 or something like that. We've had a lot of scares from hurricanes since Hugo. Thankfully, none none as devastating as Hugo was. But when it gets close, and you're talking about that 2 percentile, if you're in that 2 percentile that gets flooded out because you didn't make the necessary preparations to protect the island as much as you possibly can within financial reason, then I think we're not doing our job. And I'm for as much protection as we can financially afford, as high as possible. Forget the probability and all the stats and all that stuff. I'm talking about the human condition of the island. And the flooding is only getting worse. And day by day, this year, we've been all reading the news that this hurricane season is forecast to be the most active one in many years. And there's already a couple of depressions that popped up already in the Gulf of Mexico and off the Florida coast, and we're in that cone. So I'm for doing as much as we possibly can and not worry about 1 or 2 percentage points of some scientist probability chart.
Well, and wholeheartedly agree, and we've got a unique opportunity with the golf course being torn up next year to move where the infrastructure is to some extent and protect as much of the island as we can, particularly from 21st to 41st. So
I just,
go forth.
I mean, to go back, because I feel like my question and Blair's questions were somewhat the same, but I feel like the answers were different. With the $2.1 million plan, are there fewer homes being protected at 6 feet than there is in the current $1.2 million 6-foot plan? At a 6-foot flood, are the same amount of homes protected if we spend 2.1 or 1.2?
And when you say 2.1, you're referring to the
That last-
7 foot.
7-foot elevation with the holes,
Yep.
just spending an additional $550,000 to do what's
Page
reasonable
14.
to get up to 7.5 versus the 1.1, which is just elevating up to 6.0 along the path. Rick, that's the question.
is Very good question, and I don't think I have the answer. I'd have to go back to the office and count houses and make sure they're.
Because the last thing I would want to do is spend more money and have fewer people protected on the more common 6-foot flood. I mean, that, to me, that seems like a negative.
Yeah, absolutely.
So
Absolutely.
analyze
And that's
the-
not the intent of the project. of course.
Analyze the holes to be sure that we're not actually lowering protection behind the hole.
And,
Yeah.
and if so, what's it cost?
What does it take to
bring
get
that
it back
hole
to
Get it.
6
Yeah.
feet?
Well, wait a minute, this chart here, this map here shows the yellow is additional homes that are protected.
But that
That's with
assumes the entire
that's the $6 million
project.
project.
Okay, so
That has the
Okay, so the enhanced
holes-
6 is what we
correct.
need to see.
Correct.
Okay,
Correct,
gotcha.
yes.
Thank you.
We'll
I
we'll get you
now.
that
I'm on it.
shortly.
Let's move on.
Rick?
So in terms of next steps, just to manage expectations, so we'll run that analysis, bring that back to council at the council meeting on next Tuesday if possible. I know I like to. So we'll do that. We need to have buy-in from council about the path that we need to move forward, because that means whatever path we select, they will finish their specifications and the design of that chosen path. Then it'll take a few weeks to finalize those. We need to submit all that for permits. And as you all know, permits, we're looking at 9 to 12 months before we secure a permit, before we can even think about construction.
Isn't the meeting next Monday?
Yeah, we
I'm
got
sorry,
it.
you're right, it
Yeah.
is next Monday.
Okay.
Okay.
So that may change, but that's just, if you spend time with it, if you have any specific questions as you, continue to revise it after the presentation, let us know. We definitely need, as soon as possible, we would like to get council's buy-in and direction on the path, understanding the cost, so that we can finalize plans, submit them for permits, and be on the way to have a project that's ready for construction.
Yeah, I think you're hearing buy-in for the 2.1 without a doubt. And if there's additional cost to get everybody to full 6, then there may be something over 2.1 that we're looking at. But I think you're absolutely hearing buy-in tonight on that. Rick, thank you.
Thank you.
Good work. Appreciate your firm's help as always.
Thank you, Rick.
Next item is presentation of proposed fiscal '25 budget for the 30% state A tax to be used for advertising and promotion of tourism per section 6410. For our new members, and just a reminder for everybody, you'll recall, we're required to take 30% of our state A tax revenue, which is about 3.7 million, give or take, and spend that on promotion of tourism via destination marketing organization the city's chosen is Explore Charleston. This budget has already been reviewed and looked at by the ATAX committee and unanimously approved. So tonight we have a host, Kat, Laurie, and Chris from Explore Charleston to give us the news. Thank you guys for joining us. Sorry for the
Absolutely.
long first item.
Actually, I'm always interested on things going on around here, Mayor, so.
Being a
Good to-
resident.
Yes, good to hear. Good evening, I'm Kat Doherty. I'm the Vice President of Marketing, for those of y'all I have not met before. Also joining me tonight is Laurie Smith, our Chief of Staff, and Chris Campbell, our Vice President of Strategy and Communications. So we are glad to be back out here again. Thank you for the introduction, Mayor. For those of y'all that I have not had the privilege of presenting to before, just to review, we are your destination marketing and management organization here for Charleston County. So our job is to not only bring overnight visitors here for leisure and business group travel, but also to help manage those visitors once they're here. And then we are just discussing the 2% state accommodation tax tonight. You can see that your visitors to the island pay several different taxes and fees, but we're only talking about what is in the dark blue tonight. And then this is the different classifications of our budget according to Turk. So this is how we turn in our budget each year to the State Tourism Expenditure Review Committee, and that's how we're going to go through some of this tonight. And I think, Desiree, if I'm correct, they have our submitted budget in front of them. Yes?
Council?
Yes.
Yes, sir.
Yes.
Yes, I'm sorry, yes, ma'am.
I'll take either. It doesn't matter. All good. So we approach all of our marketing for Charleston County-wide as a year-round approach, and we have really taken into consideration things that we have heard from this council in the past several years, as well as from accommodation tax, and really done a shift, and I hope that you will see some of that again tonight. We started a lot of these shifts last year based on feedback from this group and again from Accommodation Tax Committee. And we use several different groups of research that we work with, not only College of Charleston Hospitality Research Department, also Key Data, Smith Travel, and other methods of research to base all of this on. And that is certainly something, if you have questions on tonight or in the future, that Chris Campbell can speak to. But I want to start with what's been a great success out here on the island, and that is our VRBO campaign. One of the things we heard from this group last year was how can we promote visitation to this island outside of summer months, but also outside of the resort. And we have been working with VRBO, and to date, from October to April, we have produced over $3 million in gross bookings. Now, this campaign is actually going to go on through the end of June, but this is the report that we got from them through April, and we think that that's a pretty good success. So you might be saying, well, how do you know that? We need to know a little bit more, and I'm prepared to answer that, so never fear. And if you have questions that I'm not familiar with or I can't answer tonight, don't worry, we'll come back. Their team is quite responsive because we had a few questions from ATAX that I do have answers for y'all tonight. And maybe there's not a picture there. Maybe it'll load. Okay, well, I'll just stand here and talk while it's loading. So we work with VRBO, which is owned by Expedia. So their platform and their availability of resources and what they can do as far as tracking is much more advanced than just the basic platform. So we place ads with them. If a consumer clicks on our ad that says Isle of Palms specific, they go to all of the Isle of Palms listings for the dates that they check. And then once those, I'm sorry, y'all, there, Amy, do you see them on your thing? Okay, that's even better.
I saw
There's a
something.
next slide. Go to the next slide. That one's.
There we go.
Well, that wasn't what I wanted either, but,
Yeah, something's not.
Yeah,
okay,
in the
well,
version you emailed right
yes,
before the
there it
meeting.
is. See,
it
I
is
do have
here, so
them. We can get those for y'all.
I'll share that with everybody.
They're great. They're very helpful. So they put our ads up against different measures that we give them. So we give them the off-season months. Let's only target folks October through May. Let's not target folks that are searching for the summer months because we've heard that's not a need time out here, right? Let's target people with certain household incomes, family interests such as beach. We can target them against other destinations. And so when they put in those searches into VRBO, our ads pop up even if they're searching for another destination. Once they click on our ad, the Isle of Palms listings all come up. And then if they book within 10 days of seeing that ad, clicking on the ad, that's how we get the credit, so to speak, for that booking. Now, what you can't see are more of their measurements. We know how many people are traveling in their group, if they're family, if they're adult, how long they're staying for. We also know what units are the top bookings, how many nights they're booked, what the average daily rate is, and what the gross revenue is. So that is how we are able to provide y'all with that information. Now, in terms of this, these were some of the recommendations and the asks that we had from the ATAX that we have already spoken to their team about for the new fiscal year. We have been working on a lot of new photography and video with Desiree and Chandra. So we want to go back and review the ads that we've been placing and see which ones maybe not have been as effective and put in the new photography. So let's take what we've been using our money for, put that to work. And then also, how can we find out where those visitors are coming for? So they are not able to say, Joe Smith booked number 1 42nd Avenue for this much in this time period. But you can see what they are committed to telling us as they will list us CHS as a flight destination. They can tell us top origin, and they can also look at the return on impressions of where those people are coming from. So that is more data that we weren't gathering before, but was asked by a tax committee that we can bring back to you in the future. So I'm sorry that you can't see these, but Desiree has that information and she can provide that to you. And I'm happy to stop and answer any questions about the VRBO campaign.
It's in your inbox.
We good on that?
Keep rocking, yep.
Okay, great. So other sources that are direct bookings to the Isle of Palms specifically, we work with two different platforms. One is Amadeus that we have a year-long advertising campaign on. And again, it's that same thing, except for this is specifically geared towards travel agents. When those travel agents click on our ad and they book for either the Palms, Wild Dunes, that comes up right here. And so as of May 24, we've generated over $75,000 in revenue for the island. And then Signature Travel is another travel agent revenue. They give us a calendar year report. They also book rooms through travel agents, and this is what they booked last year. Our streaming campaign has been a huge success. We work with Sinclair Media, and we do this all year round. We have several different approaches, but because this is over the top, these are our cord cutters like myself, it is much more affordable, and this works off of someone's home IP address. So we can, again, go in with the targets. We can geo-target, so we will take all of these nonstop flight destinations. So this is our current CHS direct fly destinations, along with our 6-hour drive market radius. We can plug all those in, and then we can plug in, y'all, over 50,000 characteristics of things that people like. So where they're located, household income, beach, we can get down to bird watching. Do you play tennis? Do you play pickleball? All those different kinds of interests and things specifically we know that people like to do right here on Isle of Palms, and we can plug those in to the different commercials that we run, and they run across the country. And in addition, Sinclair, just in time for November, when we first got notified about our direct flights to Toronto, they are the only American media company allowed to access streaming in Canada. So that worked out really good, and I really want to tell y'all that I planned it that way, but I didn't, but I feel good that it worked out like that. So that's another way we are putting those dollars to work. Now, moving on to our websites, we have multiple different websites that we maintain, and on our main website, which is explorecharleston.com, we have an Isle of Palms specific page under areas to explore with a unique URL, discoveriop.com. And on here, we have all different kinds of information, but we also, this is where we had worked with the city before. We are a membership organization, but this is a place where we had listened to y'all previously, and we have any non-member business that wanted to be included on this site is able to be included on this. So that is something we want to extend to Isle of Palm businesses. And if you hear of someone that still wants to be included on this site, we're happy to work with them. They can connect with me through Chandra or Desiree at any point, and we will get them on this site. And then within the week, we are launching, I'm so excited, our brand new beaches site, Charleston area beaches. And we have a bunch of new additions to this site that seem like we probably should have had them before. But again, taking feedback from our beach communities, we have added beach rules, pet rules. And I will say on beach rules, turtle rules are included. Someone else asked me that. They are on there. Parking rules, ADA information, which all are such a great beach for our visitors that are looking for ADA compliancy, as well as weather and tide. So this is launching next week. And we put a lot of money behind both of these sites to get traction and visitors too. And then here's your Isle of Palms specific Meta and Google display campaign. Meta is Facebook and Instagram. And these are year-round campaigns that specifically tout Isle of Palms. And then I'm sure everyone is familiar with the IOP Thrives. This is something we have been proud to support. And I think from everything we've heard from the mayor and Desiree, it seems to be going well. And we're continuing to happy to be a part of that. Now, something else we've been talking to the staff about is a new branding campaign for visitors to the island. And we agree that this is something that should come from an outside agency. While it is something we could do, I think fresh eyes are always best, and we look forward to working with them to find just the right agency and team to put this together. And we look forward to also implementing it along with the town and supporting it as best we can. And then our favorite beach campaign, Know Before You Go, back in effect, and we are once again the sponsor of that. And then group sales. We continue to work with Wild Dunes, and I know this isn't the most important thing to everybody here, but bringing in these groups still does bring a large amount of revenue back into the coffers here, because these folks traveling on business tend to spend more money, and that's just great tax revenue back into y'all's pockets. And then lastly, we love Chandra. We love having her. She's in our office regularly, and we feel that it's a great cohesive team and unit, and regular back and forth and communications like we weren't able to have before, as well as the city benefits from our media team out there pushing stories and earned media for the city, and our visitor service team. We recently found out, I think, that we had over 35,000, is that right, Laurie? Requests on our chat. We have a live chat function that people in our office, not in another country or another city, actually answer. 35,000 requests for more beach-related information just in the past year. And again, those are directly answered by our staff. So I am happy. Those are the highlights for this coming year of our budget. I'm happy to answer any questions. I know Chris and Laurie feel the same way. But that's the good stuff. And I hope y'all feel like we've been listening to you, because we've really been trying to put y'all's best foot forward. Take your advice.
Kat, I guess looking at the budget numbers, roughly 40% is IOP specific, whether it's shared resources or campaigns that you're looking at. And then you break down the rest of the expense that we send you different ways based on hotel rooms, luxury, beach, whatever. So it kind of makes sense how you allocated out the expense numbers. So, and I know that's a result of a lot of conversations with our ATAX committee and others. So thank you all for doing that. Yeah.
I actually had a question
Yeah.
around that.
Yeah, sure.
I didn't really understand the numbers. 424 hotel rooms. I know we've got the 249 in Wild Dunes. We've got the 119 at the front beach. And then our short-term rental number of 1,055 short-term rental units. I mean, I don't think we've seen that number that low in like 20 years. I was just wondering, like, where the number came from that we were using to create this percentage. I mean, I'm happy with, I'm not unhappy with the
Right.
percentage, but the numbers, I wasn't sure where they came from.
So that came up at the ATAX, and I know Chris addressed that at the ATAX committee. They look at very similar data to what we get from Rentalscape about activity. So, Chris, if you want to address that. So that's, I think, was driving that number that they're using for their budget. It's not the number of licenses issued by the city, but it's more about activity and,
Yeah, well, just a little clarification there. We do rely on the county's licenses at a point in time for the short-term rental, the vacation rental numbers. I think what I've learned, and thanks to your packet even, is where some of the distinction lies is you're looking at a year of data, and some of those we're seeing more and more as we get farther from the pandemic. The inventory is changing quite a bit on different islands and when they're active and when they're not. So Rentalscape may be showing you all something different than in terms of who's actually actively using their license as compared to the point in time where the county is counting licenses that they've issued.
So when you say the county, I mean, I'm assuming you mean the county, like what,
Accommodations tax.
like the,
The county, I'm sorry, you're talking about for the vacation rentals, we go to the Charleston County. their,
Okay.
So it must be their,
revenue.
those that, their
They're submitting-
accommodation accounts.
got it.
Yeah.
So they're submitting checks.
Correct.
Yes.
Yeah, okay.
And Laurie helped me understand, we worked with them, and then some of the municipalities as well, dating back, 6, 7 years now, to help with the compliance, back when people were really trying to get their hands around this. And I'll give the county's revenue department a lot of credit. She does not let a lot go by without checking. So I think they're very diligent with their licenses. But we have heard also in our conversations with some of the other islands that the numbers may not add one-to-one. But in order, from a budgeting standpoint, to be fair, we want to make sure that we're using, I guess, the same source so that denominators are across the board equitable, I guess.
Yeah, and all that's driving is the split of expenses.
Yes, sir.
I mean,
Right,
whether
yeah.
it's 8.9 or 6.4, I mean, it's.
Exactly.
Thank you.
Other questions? Explore Charleston team, thank you all for hanging in there with us. Appreciate it, as always. Yep, yep.
So we'll be, this will be an action item for council to vote on, as you all do every year.
Their
So
annual
that they can
budget.
submit it to TURC, correct?
Yep. Very good, thank you. Your next item is dashboard of city operations, and speaking of, short-term rental report. This is in your packet, Desiree.
Yes, on the, for the May dashboard, again, we'll talk a little bit more in detail with revenues and expenses when we go to financial statements later on in the agenda. But we're looking, you can see under revenues, tourism lagging actual to budget. And we'll talk about a lot of these tourism accounts were delayed. Some local option sales tax were delayed in collecting or receiving from the county 3 months. So we're a little bit behind, but we're confident that we'll catch up in the next month or two. In terms of vacancies, we have 2 full-time police officer vacancies and 1 animal control officer and 1 BSO. And we have 3 paramedic and firefighter positions still open. Candidates for all of that are being reviewed. Interviews are being held by HR and the appropriate department heads. And I know that some offers have been made, just maybe not accepted just yet. So hopefully we can see changes there for the June dashboard. Few upcoming events to make sure you have on your calendar. We'll have the fireworks show the 4th of July. That's a Thursday at 9. The rain date in the event of inclement weather will be Friday evening. Police department charges and actions, you can see that the department has been responding and addressing a lot of traffic-related incidents and charges, as well as DUI, drug-related charges, and livability. I think we have been making a huge effort at the staff level at addressing concerns about enforcement of livability complaints, and I think hopefully you can see in that throughout the entire report, a concerted effort at addressing that. Calls for service for the fire department have continue to go up compared to the prior year. We had about 300 calls for service this month. So steadily increasing as we have seen over the past couple of years. Auto aid, you can see there, we had 23 calls here on Isle of Palms where auto aid was provided, and 27 calls where we actually assisted some of our other partners from the auto aid agreement. Public Works, garbage, and yard debris. Nothing pressing. I mean, we're pretty much in line with where we have been over the past couple of years. Same thing with the number of cases for municipal court and recreation department registrations. For the building department, here you can see the construction value and the new homes permitted. So far this year, for the first 5 months, we've issued 10 permits. still behind what we've seen in the past, calendar year 2022 and 2021, but hopefully improving compared to 2023. So far, next page, you can see the breakdown of the short-term rental licenses that have been issued in license year 2024, 2025. So that starts May 1st through April 30th of 2025. We've issued, this is, again, records and applications processed from May 1st through June 10th. We've issued 1,610 licenses so far. And
What
they
does
are-
that compare to last year?
So in addition to the 1610, we have 42 that are pending, and that means they've applied. We've issued an invoice and it hasn't not yet been paid, or there's additional documentation necessary. But you can see the next page where we compare the number of licenses issued in license year 2023. So that would have ended April 30th this year.
So it's down.
Well, we issued a total of 1,855 licenses for the entire license year period, 12 months, compared to 1,610 so far of 1 year of, 1 month of processing licenses.
6% are two off. They're two, year over year, we're two different. That's it. So, yeah. And total licenses were within like 20 or 30.
So I think your question is comparing where we were in June of last year compared to June of this year. I don't have that information in front of me.
What percentage of the licenses are issued in April and May of a year? That's what we need to know.
Okay, I don't have that right here.
Well, is it your experience the vast majority of people will renew their license rather than pay the penalty?
Yes, I think that those that are very active will immediately renew their license before even the renewal period ends on April 30th. Yeah, I would say the overwhelming majority of people renew on time.
Overwhelming majority. Looks like to me, we're about 200 off from last year.
That's incorrect. That's completely incorrect.
How's that incorrect?
Because last year at this time, we had 1,489 6% rentals. This year, we have, we have 1,491. So we're a difference of 6% rentals from last year at this time.
Where was
And
that?
wait a minute, let me just finish. And on the 4%, we had 142 issued last year. At this time, we have 121. So we're down on the 4%, but we're almost
steady.
absolutely the same on the 6%. So we
you're-
have not dropped, we're in
So
the
you're looking at last year's
last year's-
report for the
exactly.
same month. I don't
Exactly.
have that in front
I
of
have
me.
month over month right here.
But I have
So to
read
say that we're
it.
declining is totally incorrect on a year-over-year basis.
Okay, so there's no number out there of 1,800 short-term rental licenses last year?
Yes, so we finished last year of license year 2023, we finished the year with 1,855 licenses. We did have a peak in February of this year of 1,873, and that number went down, and I think we reported that we did have people call in and ask for their license to be removed. They were not renting it and were not intending for that license to be renewed, so we ended the year at 1,855. But we did have a peak at one point in February of 1,873.
But now there's 1,652.
But we're only 2 months into the registration.
1 month.
They
Yeah,
they
1
will
month into
trickle in for the remainder of
Was
this
it
year.
people asking me, are these rental licenses exploding? As some
Sounds like
people
it's
say.
pretty much exactly
They're
what
exactly where they were
last
last year. So from the prior year, they grew over 400, we're holding steady.
Except I think, I mean, we do have the STR coordinator position dedicated, so I think there's been much faster processing of licenses this year compared to last year, without a doubt.
Well, we'd have to look at the queue. The queue was about the same last year as it is this year. So it really is a matter of how many are being submitted and over what period of time.
I think at the time when we ran this report last week, there were no applications that had not been processed.
Yeah, you
Well,
got.
you have the 42, they've been
Last
processed,
year
we're just
there were-
waiting for those to be
Yeah,
paid.
last year there were 56. Yeah.
In Q
Yeah.
56.
Well, a lot of people are keenly interested in this number and how this compares to previous year.
It's
As
tracking
going
about the same.
forward each month, I'll be asking specific questions about this.
Yeah, and I think that these dashboards are really helpful. They show a month-to-month trend, if you will, and that's it's easy to compare year over year since we started doing this.
And it is in
early
the
last
packet
year.
every year, so if you wanted to
Every
go
month.
back and look,
Exactly.
every month, if you wanted to go back and look at June of last year, you could just pull up the packet on your phone.
And then Desiree, I know we had asked along during the year, it doesn't make a lot of sense to run your second page to show, kind of how many active, how many are at a certain revenue point. So this is end of the year, looking back at the previous permit year,
Correct.
so.
Correct. So the next page.
You have the next page, Amy?
Page 8 I think she didn't pull
Okay,
it.
that's all right.
But
It's
in the packet,
yep.
it's page 8, it shows the distribution of rental licenses by gross revenue, and then comparing 4% versus 6%. And you can see about 55% of all total rentals report gross revenues of 75,000 or less. So the majority of our licenses on the island are within that range.
And that was last year based on, this is last year's number?
This is based on license year 2023, so it would have captured all licenses issued as of April 30 of 2024.
And that was prior to our requiring any sort of documentation
Correct.
regarding
So
revenue. So-
It'll be very interesting to see this report at the end of this license year, which will be next
Whether we'll tell
April.
250 people that have 0 to
Correct.
5,000.
Yeah, I'd like to make a request too I think this is a great report, and I think it's very helpful. I would like to see us try to do maybe a reconciliation of the reported revenue to our A-tax revenue. Because when I do the math on this, if we're getting the 3% for state and local, muni hospitality tax of the 3%, this equates to about $4.5 million of A-tax revenue. We're running on our forecast about 6.5. So we got a $2 million delta on what it suggests, and I'm sure some of this is going to be the resort. But we've got a huge delta of probably right now an unexplained $70 million difference of what we're forecasting for our A-tax revenue and the base of revenue that's being reported on these licenses. So I think we need to reconcile that.
We've run that report, we've looked at it internally, we can certainly include that and share that.
And a big, almost.
The majority of it
is the resort.
is the
Yeah.
resort, yeah.
Yeah, because to your point, these are short-term rentals, not hotel rooms, and that's really where your difference is. I mean,
Correct.
it's eye-opening a little bit, to see what the resort's pumping in now that you've had the Sweetgrass Inn open another
Yeah,
year.
I will say that the challenge with that report is we are precluded by state law from providing gross revenue of any business license application.
Any individual. Understood.
Correct,
Any
and I
aggregate.
think if we provide something that says this does not include, this includes the resort, it'd be very easy to back in the gross reported by the resort.
Well, actually, Ms. Hack had reported how much tax revenue that she had, the resort was generating, so we may be able to maybe we can work with them as well to try to reconcile that. The other question I had is the 145 million, is that, what is in that revenue number? Do we know, or maybe that's something we could take as a follow-up? That's the
reported.
That would be their gross revenue without the tax included, I'm assuming.
Correct,
Is that correct? Yeah.
That's correct.
Yes.
Everything but the taxes.
but the tax.
A little future change on this to that point is we have always, we have 2 properties on the front beach that were constructed as hotels.
Oh, yeah.
They operated as a hotel with 1 hotel business license for many years. A number of years ago, they separated out the ownership of each room. We then got each room to get its own short-term rental license. They are working to go, they would like to go back to being a single hotel unit. So that would have the effect of the number of short-term rentals dropping, whatever that would be, I think it's 70-ish
Units, yeah.
units. So there will be a little bit of a change in the numbers, kind of from what we've historically seen.
That's what they'd spike up over here on the revenue. Yeah,
That's
as
correct.
As one.
They had their own
Right.
TMS
So,
numbers
yeah,
too.
it's a-
Say again?
They had their own tax map numbers as well?
Yes.
Yes.
So that number will, so the it won't, it's an apple and apple, like the 70 will come off of the license number, but it will also come off of the total number of dwelling units that we're talking about.
That's
Correct, because it'll be treated as
There'll
a
be
hotel.
one, yeah. Should be.
Yeah.
I
Well,
don't know
you
if
can do
it'll
it
have
both
one
ways.
TMS number. I don't know. I don't know how the TMS.
We can adjust for it.
number-
Yeah.
We can, I
But that'll
think,
be a
yeah,
change in our numbers. And
We
I'll
we
just
need
tell you
to
that.
account for that if they don't.
correct.
Which we adjust for now. I mean, you've got a couple of footnotes on that page that are specific to that property.
Did you say that these people were reporting revenues and net of tax?
No, all their revenue reporting is gross.
So that's
Gross minus, they don't.
That net of tax means revenues minus tax.
Exactly.
Oh, okay,
So
yeah,
it's the
gross
145
minus
included.
tax.
Yeah.
Right. So how do you know that? You just ask them?
Well, now we
We
get,
are now.
Now we
yeah,
get
now we get their tax
tax
documents.
reports.
Depends on if they're reporting it correctly or not.
That's
What their
always,
CPA or their accountant's doing. Because I go behind a lot of people and find out they're paying tax on tax.
Yeah, they should
And
not.
so
be paying-
they're putting the gross revenue as revenue plus tax.
I don't
And I've
think we'd
applied
be
for a lot of
aware.
refunds for people, then we found out within 3 years that they were overpaying. So you're just taking what they tell you.
No, what their
their
tax
Their actual
documents show.
tax.
Right.
Right,
Filed
and
documents.
their attestation that that's what they filed.
Correct.
Correct.
So it's an added layer of verification that we have been doing this year
Just
that we
started.
hadn't done
And
before,
if the tax were included, it would just widen the gap, it wouldn't shorten.
Correct.
Yeah.
pretty much. All right.
Departmental reports, they're in your
There you go.
packet. Questions, comments? Desiree, anything you want to highlight on? Next item is strategic plan, policy initiatives, and priorities. First is livability, discussion of ordinance 2024-03 to prohibit placement of political signs in the public right-of-way. We've had first reading on this. Desiree, I know there's a red line in the packet with a couple of tweaks that we need to make just for consistency and application.
Yeah, so this ordinance was approved by council for first reading back in April. It was presented to the planning commission for their review. As you all know, any changes to the zoning code require a trip to the planning commission and a recommendation from the planning commission and a public hearing. Planning commission looked at this and really caught something that we had not anticipated. As you all see in the proposed red line that was recommended by the administration committee, the city would be changing our code to be consistent with state law and prohibiting signs along any public right-of-way or highway, but then applying the existing restrictions to political signs that exist today, which it establishes that they can be placed in the public right-of-way no more than 30 days prior to an event, and they must be removed 2 days after the event, and it establishes the maximum size for that sign, and then establish that those requirements would then apply to political signs placed in private property. That's how the red line is presented. I do not think that the intention of the committee was to do that, and that's why I brought it before you all, because the existing sign ordinance, section 54136, subsection A, establishes that non-commercial signs can be erected within some size constraints in private property without any restrictions. So right now, a resident can place a political sign in their private property as long as 8 square feet. Currently, if it's on non-commercial signs, so political signs would apply to that. If the goal is to maintain that ability for residents to place political signs or any non-commercial sign in private property within those size constraints, then we would be eliminating subsection D from the proposed red line, so that the revisions to our code would only deal with the prohibition of political signs in the public right-of-way.
I know, that was my thought.
Yeah.
Have we talked to the city attorney about freedom of speech issue with subsection D, because we're now quelling freedom of speech?
No, that's
Well, I
what we're
think
saying,
that's
we're gonna
the-
get rid
yeah.
of D. D's bad.
That's why we're proposing removing
Well, I
that, so we're
understand.
not, it's
Okay.
not, you're not regulating it by content. You're establishing that no signs will be allowed on the public right-of-way, And signs in private property, as long as they're non-commercial, would just be regulated by the size of the sign, not the content.
So the edit is just remove section D.
Correct.
So does that make
And we
sense?
already,
Yeah, I just want to make sure
and
everybody.
we already regulate size
Okay,
for all, right?
Correct.
Yeah.
okay.
So the point was made by a couple planning commissioners that they liked the reference of D to direct future political candidates, so it would kind of stand out more to say political signs basically reference the one section for on your private property that they have to be 8 square feet, and then also reference the other section about the right-of-way saying they're prohibited. Otherwise, it's a little bit buried, that if you're entering into a campaign, nowhere in the sign code would it address political signs. So that was a suggestion from them. It's just clarity if you want it. I don't know that it's absolutely necessary. I think it's,
Keep it simple. and
I
let's-
think people will figure it out. And
Yeah.
the first time one of their signs gets taken down,
But the idea
they'll
is that
figure it out.
since in the past, currently, we have allowed political signs in our public right-of-way. By putting that in, we're announcing that we're changing that, aren't we?
Ignorance of
Right.
the law
Well,
is no
yeah, so the code currently allows political signs to be placed in the public right-of-way 30 days before an event. This change would eliminate that, but then the allowance would still remain in the code as it is today, that non-commercial signs can be placed in private property as long as it is within the size restrictions.
And it is being removed because it is against state law to have them there in the first place. And this,
The public right-of-way.
the public
signs, yeah.
right-of-ways, yes, not your private property. And what we had inadvertently did was we created a conflict, in our own code. And if we passed this, beyond Blair's very correct, I think, comment about content and what somebody can have on a sign or not have on a sign, what we have done would then restrict it by time. And we would then have an issue with the more restrictive of the two when there is a conflict applying, and we'd just be right back here talking about it all again. So it's just, yeah.
It was a good catch by the
It was,
planning
yes,
commission.
it was a great catch by the
Yes.
planning commission, yeah. That's why it's good to. read
Douglas,
the
I'll give you
entirety of
credit
the-
for
Yeah, there you go. Was it
I would
Matt?
like to
Who
take
was
it, but I had nothing to do with it.
David.
It was David Cohen,
David, of course
our
it was.
favorite techie.
So we'll be making those changes to the red line, so you all could consider a second reading of this ordinance as amended.
On Monday, yeah.
As amended on Monday. And in terms of timing, we had submitted a advertisement for the public hearing to be held next Tuesday, but that was before we knew we have a runoff election. So we're going to have to run another advertisement for a new public hearing the fourth Tuesday in July. So second reading,
be
actually,
August.
will not be next Tuesday, will be in July, after the public hearing.
Or August, if, we take
Do it
July
again.
off.
Word.
Next. Environmental discussion of shoal management project permit. We've had
Okay.
numerous conversations on this one, but
Yes, so as I've reported last month, we held a public meeting at the Recreation Center, May 22nd, to provide a lot of detail and background on the city's proposed shoal management project. The meeting is available online. We also shared information via our new newsletter, encouraging people to look at the permit and provide comments. I'm not an engineer, so please bear with me. The application that we had submitted to the regulatory agencies included the potential harvesting of sand from two different harvest areas. One, which is our priority, the harvest area along the incoming shoal, that it's off of the Grand Pavilion area. And then a second harvest area along the avenues between 44th and 57th. And the permit is very specific as to the amount of cubic yards of sand that would be harvested from both locations. Our plan has always been to give the city as many options in the future, as we know these permits last 5 years, whenever, between now and the time when we are ready to execute a larger scale dredging project, that we have options to address hotspot erosions like we are seeing today. Our goal and our plan has always been to leverage all of the sand that's coming through that incoming shoal, but also have the option of harvesting and recycling some sand as part of our sediment plan from the avenues, which is an area that has a significant surplus of sand today. Due to all the public comment that we have been seeking and engaging the community in this whole conversation, we anticipate some challenges and concerns from the community over the harvest area along the avenues. What we would like to do is separate the permit that we have submitted already and have a permit application in for the shoal, which is not controversial. It is new sand that's coming in, and separate that from the permit for harvesting and recycling sand from the avenues. What we don't want to do is stop progress on the permit application for the shoal by tying it to an area that may have some challenges and concerns and a lot of public comment that the regulatory agencies would need to respond to. Therefore, that is our proposed path. It doesn't change anything other than it may take the city longer to secure a permit for the avenues, or it may be denied. We don't know. But we think that by separating the two, we don't hinder our ability to do progress within the shoal later this year and coming winter, when we would be able to execute a project.
Much more important to grab the shoal sand, for sure. Cannot miss that opportunity.
So that's going to be our path. I just wanted to get you all on board, and I'm seeing head nods, so that's going to be the path that we'll take.
Yeah.
Sounds good.
Great
idea.
Thank you, Desiree. Next item, public services, sorry. Discussion of commercial bulk container dumpster service. Desiree?
All right, so as you all may or may not know, the city has historically paid for the commercial dumpster service for all commercial entities on the island. The cost to the city of this service has averaged around $70,000 to $75,000 a year. We have had a long-standing agreement with a contractor, and the city was paying, this is before my time, before my predecessor's time, and potentially her predecessor's time. So it's been happening for a long time, and we were paying about 75 cents per cubic yard of garbage that's collected from these dumpsters, commercial dumpsters on the island. Last month, we received a notice from the vendor that the price was going to go up to $3 per cubic yard. So that is a quadrupling of the cost for this service. So we've gone from $70,000 to $75,000 to $250,000 a year for this cost. This month, we submitted a request for bids for the city to get a new price for this service. And the lowest bid, we received 4 bids, and the lowest bid was $2.50, which is still triple what we were paying. So I'm bringing this before you all. Our budget assumes a 75-cent per cubic yard expense for this operation. And I would like to get some direction from the city about what we would like to do in the future. I do not know of any other community in the state that provides and pays for this service for commercial businesses. This has come up in the past, even during my time as the city administrator, when we're looking for alternatives to have some savings and cut some costs. And I think the city in the past has been very generous with the commercial operations, and at a $70,000 cost, felt like it was a service that the city could provide to businesses as they have struggled or potentially could struggle during the off-season. I think that has changed in today's world, and I would like to have just direction from council about what we do with these bids. Do we want to continue to provide this service? Does the city want to phase that out?
What would your recommendation be?
Well, we have a couple of options. I mean, I think that a quadrupling of the cost is, it's a lot.
I thought there was some contribution from the businesses for the use of the dumpsters.
So we have a municipal compactor in Lot A. Yes, Lot A, which is a small lot. The city pays for the service fee, but the businesses pay for the user fee directly through the county. So this is the service.
To the county or to the city?
The county collects the user fee, not the city. We collect it from those owners that use our compactor because we pay for that. So the county bills the city and we seek reimbursement for that user fee.
So they're writing a check to the city of Isle of Palms?
Yes, for the user fee, which we then pay, we pay the county.
I think we need to do a really thorough analysis about hospitality tax, revenues and expenses, about where everything goes, and how much they're paying, and how much is going for maybe services that are not related to the compactor.
Like police, fire.
Just take a look at it. That's what the businesses are asking me. I talked to a couple of them after I spoke with you this afternoon. They want to know.
They want to know what services the city provides to them with their hospitality tax payments?
They just want accounting, and it's just simple accounting, that's all.
Were they shocked by the increase in price, or do they have a thought on that?
Not really. They just want to know a little bit more in depth about financials.
So they're not concerned about the quadruple?
They're not what?
They're not concerned about the quadrupling of the expense?
Well, of course they are. Everybody is.
Well, that's what I just asked. And you said no.
I'd like to see, we've got a new fiscal year we're entering. This would be a $250,000 surprise. I think that, like you said, if we're benchmarking against other municipalities, this is a service that's been in place forever. And I think the businesses, as you said, they may have been struggling at some point in time many decades ago, but hopefully they're thriving. This is clearly a business expense that's being generated, from the business. Maybe there's a way we could sort of take the 75 that we've got budgeted and use that to help on a phase out over the course of the next fiscal year. But I think that anything above that 75 should be something that the businesses would need to figure out how to absorb.
And that would be my recommendation. Any changes that we do, we phase it out because it has been a historical service provided. And whether the city pays for the remaining of the service at the end of the year and we start phasing it out starting calendar year 2025 and cover a portion up to the $75,000 that we have budgeted and then seek reimbursement from the businesses for the other portion, that would be something that I think would be reasonable with a goal of maybe at the end of 3 years or 2 years that the city is covering that cost by the users.
Are we?
Hang on. Get Jimmy real quick.
Mr. Chairman, I'd like to make a motion to suspend the rules of order to allow a question and answer period brief question and answer period from the city's public works director.
Hopefully we don't have to suspend the rules to have Donnie come up. Come
Yeah,
on
we
up,
don't.
Donnie.
Down in here or there, whatever.
May I ask a
Or
question in the interim?
You need a motion for that.
I don't, not for one
No,
shot,
he's-
not for one shot.
Well, I'm not going to fight you on it, but.
So let me just clarify Councilwoman Campson's question concerning the quadrupling. Those businesses today pay no service. They pay the user fee.
Right.
So they don't have never seen the 75 cent per cubic yard. The city incurs that cost. So the checks that they're writing to the city for the front beach is purely for the user fee to the county landfill. So If you phase this out, then each business would then also have to pay the service.
Is the user
That's the
fee by volume,
The user fee
or is
is,
it just a flat, like a 125, or? is
No,
it
it's-
Per dumpster, it's by
it's-
volume?
it's by
That's what I
volume
thought,
based
yeah.
on 30-yard compactor, whether it's full or not.
Right.
The county sees it as 30 yards on a compactor formula, and that's how that's computed.
And then, Councilmember
It's fine.
Campson.
Elizabeth's fine. It's worked for a long time.
We then, for those businesses that use a municipal compactor, because we get that bill from the county, we then use a formula to share that user fee between the users, and they pay that to the city as a reimbursement. But everybody else pays the user fee directly to the county.
Got it,
We pay for this, we have been paying for the service fee.
got it.
How does,
And
sorry, go ahead.
so the question I wanted to ask originally is, so we put this out for bid.
Yes, ma'am.
And we get, I mean, are we, I mean, not that, I'm certain that businesses don't do this, but sometimes they look at a municipality and they kind of inflate their, I mean, is that, do we think that's even a reasonable? I mean, sometimes a municipality will get a much higher offer, you know, oh, we'll do it for X here, but if it was a private group, it's, all of a sudden, it's half the price.
I think the opposite would be true, because there are so many dumpsters to be serviced. We think the price per yard is lower for us, because they're here at one point and servicing a lot, versus, one company coming here, maybe servicing one dumpster at a time. We think that if each business would go out on their own, potentially, we haven't tested this, potentially the price per yard would be higher.
These are shared dumpsters, Donnie, in many cases?
Some.
All?
Only
They're all
the
individual?
compactor.
Every one of them's in, okay.
Yep.
So each entity, and 30% of your total number of dumpsters on this island are your restaurants. Probably got 70% in your duplexes and condominiums.
You do have one in Ocean Park Plaza, that is one for all of those businesses.
Yes.
Which is,
There's a smaller one.
It's
Butcher
small.
shop,
You have
Subway.
butcher shop, Subway, the bank.
So what you're saying, I think, and maybe you're not sure either, is we can do it for whatever it is, quadruple what we were doing it, 70,000 times 4. Or we can push it out to them and they could be doing it for even more than that?
possibly.
Possibly.
Probably.
Possibly, I think if you're getting different companies engaging with specific, specific one-offs, businesses, the price per yard would be higher, we think. Potentially, we don't know. That's just
Economies of
us.
scale.
Economies of scale, they're
Right.
here, they're here almost every day servicing these
We
dumpsters.
don't know.
Well, the bottom line is it's a major drastic increase in cost that we can't absorb anymore. We have to figure out a way to gracefully get out of it.
So,
Mayor.
And that dumpster is the only dumpster that we're subsidizing? We're not doing it at the marina or anywhere else?
we're paying for everything.
For all,
Well, yeah,
Everything.
here, but not at the marina?
Yes.
yeah,
Pay for
all the
everything.
dumpsters.
We
all
pay
commercial
for all
dumpsters.
commercial. We pay for the resort, we pay for the golf
We
course.
pay everybody's trash removal.
All the
Correct.
HOA, yeah, all the condominiums.
seems
But
really
only
nice.
the trash removal here is going up? Nobody else's is
No,
going up?
everything's-
No, everybody.
Okay.
It's all going up. Well, how does recycling play into this?
This contract also picks up recycling.
Okay.
Not
So-
all of them have a bin.
Not all of them have a bin, but those who have a recycling bin, this same company
So they
picks them
wouldn't
up,
be-
and we pay for that.
So we wouldn't be like saving money if we're recycling?
No. So we have a total number of cans that we collect every month is 95,
Commercial.
commercial.
Oh, as well.
That's a lot.
And
That's a lot.
condos we're calling commercial.
Yeah.
Correct, and
Getting
that is
really
another thing I wanted to make sure we include. The list of the commercial operation and commercial collection includes condominiums that we have transitioned away from cans to dumpsters to improve the efficiency of public works. So I would think that those we would continue to cover the cost of, because it would be the equivalent of our public works department picking up their garbage, but everything else that's commercial would be something that we would find an alternative.
Truly commercial. Yeah.
Truly
Those were
commercial.
doing it as a convenience to us rather than,
And Donnie and team have been methodically
Do you
working
have
to,
something to add, Donnie? No?
No, not at this
Yeah.
time, just
keep rocking.
keep rocking.
Thank you, Donnie.
Would a phased approach be something that the group would prefer within a year, 2 years, with a cap of 75?
I think the 75
Makes
is, yeah, that's about as high as we would probably want to absorb, I'm guessing. But it's just my take. I don't know how many years we need to be going out for this.
So in the RFP, we indicated that the city, very typical, would be interested in a 3-year agreement. One path would be the city to enter into the 3-year agreement and pass on some of the costs to the businesses, anything over the $75,000 that the city has budgeted, and collect that, for the city to collect that. That is not my favorite option because I don't want to become a collection agency, but that is a path.
I hate to say this, but I kind of like that path. I mean, I think I do. I don't know, it's hard in a bubble to talk about it, but like, if we can save them money in a way and make it more, we've got one company dealing instead of multiple servicing companies fighting on our streets with their different trash trucks at different times.
That would be the upside, for sure.
Yeah, I mean, it
Cut
it
down on
seems,
traffic, yes.
yeah, and it cuts down on the amount that they're gonna have to pay ultimately. I mean, I don't think we need to be carrying the full load, but I don't know that I wanna all of a sudden flip the full load to everybody else, particularly if it's gonna be 3 times what we think our estimate is.
I don't know that we know that. I think we should find that out, and I think for us to be a collection agent over a 3-year period for trash pickup is not a good way to go. That would be my take. I don't want to put our city in a position to be collecting trash fees.
Because you don't have a lot of leverage, or the
You got,
business
you
license.
got turnover,
Yeah.
you're gonna have rental turnover. I mean, you could have a lot of variables that, I don't think that's a business or core competency that we want to get involved in. I think if we went out one fiscal year, which would give them to June of 26, or no, 25.
25.
That should be adequate time to be planning and putting infrastructure and process in place for them to pay for their own trash, and we'll continue the 75,000 for that period of time, for the 1 year.
so.
What if,
To get us to June is 250,000.
No, I'm saying we will still only absorb the
70.
75. We'll be the collection, we'll have to accommodate that
Year.
for 1 year, but I don't think for us to take on another 200 and some odd $1,000 is
So,
fair to the city.
so I guess if you break down the monthly cost, if we were to tap out at 75,000, that would be, we pay it all for 3 or 4 months. Then we've spent the 75,000, then we
I think
stop there.
maybe look at that option and talk to the businesses, how fast they could transition over, or see about, maybe we do have to be in that position for 1 year instead of 3 years to help with the
Pay
transition.
the full load for 1 year.
Well,
Up to 75.
Up to 75, and then we are the collection agent for the 1 year. I mean, there's no easy, I mean, you can,
I would just suggest that if we do decide to keep the commercial pickup business for ourselves, let the city do it, that anyone who is in arrears, 3 months or 6 months or whatever, probably 3 months with trash, that you discontinue service to them and they have to get their own. It's a very simple solution there.
Until your trash piles up.
Well,
How are you gonna-
then you find the hell out of them.
So when you've got multiple businesses using one compactor, how are you going to distinguish?
Yeah, I mean, we know exactly where the dumpsters are, how often they're serviced, how many yards. The path could be that we bill whatever it is to the businesses, and if they do not pay, then the city doesn't issue a new business license at the time of renewal. And that is the only leverage that we would have to ensure that they pay the city during that year or two, whatever time we decide that we would be collecting.
So do they know anything at all about this?
No, this happened, this
So
happened
they're-
last week.
They're finding out on TV tonight, if they're watching.
Oh, they're going to watch this.
You are finding out first.
Yeah, you all are finding out first,
On
which is
TV.
what we
we're
typically.
all finding out together. Yeah.
Perhaps meet with the Chamber of Commerce and see if.
Yeah,
they have a
absolutely. I mean,
solution.
I wanted to get I wanted to you all to know what's happening. This happened within the last week. Put it on the agenda, presented the information. There's a couple of options that we can take. We would definitely we host quarterly meetings with our business community. We would have that and have a conversation as well as with the chamber.
And if there's a way
figured
to
you-
work out some kind of a 12-month transition, that should be adequate. I mean,
Yeah.
we can,
From my perspective, I think maybe we need, and I hate that I'm even getting ready to say this, but a committee to look at this of some sort, because this is very complicated. Because if we do away with picking up the trash, every restaurant's going to have their own dumpster. Some dumpsters will get serviced, some dumpsters won't. We'll have rats at one place, not at some place else. Those rats are going to move over to the other place. It's just it can potentially be chaos if we don't do this the right way, because this is a small island.
mean,
It
I
might
was-
be worth looking into, even if we, built some sort of a fee for commercial properties into their tax bill, so that we have some leverage to collect it. I don't know. I don't know the answer to any of it.
You're very right, though. I was in a beach community last weekend, and on Sunday evening, Monday morning, they had piles of trash just sitting out next,
Yeah, I
because
mean,
they're
we just
obviously
don't know.
responsible for their own trash, and I mean,
And
it
then
was.
what do you do if
It
there's a
was pretty
storm?
bad, like, I mean, it
Because if
is.
there's a hurricane.
It's a big deal.
stacked, Donnie will tell you, it's circus tents full of trash.
Well, that's the value of the option, one of the options we've discussed, of the city having the
City keeping the
contract.
contract.
And then trying to recover some of the cost up to a point decided by council from the businesses directly. That is not ideal because we become a collection agency, but we would have control of the contract, control of the service, and you minimize however many
Trash.
companies are here servicing, how often, we know how often these need to be serviced to meet our expectations on the island. So there's an upside and certainly a downside from that approach, but would allow us to have more control over the service.
So this is on the agenda more as a budget question versus this, it's not been, the committee would be public facilities, I guess. that would
Correct.
Review this, okay.
Yeah.
But that hadn't been to them yet, because it
Correct.
just came in. Okay.
Yeah,
should-
this just
It's
happened.
fresh.
We should probably add this to the public facilities agenda.
We'll do that.
Yeah.
Wait a minute.
So we will be,
Be careful what you wish for.
so
literally talking trash.
so we will
Trash and dirt.
continue to pay month to month with the existing vendor until a decision is made.
Sounds good.
All right.
Didn't they say that price increase went up in June 1st?
Yes, sir.
Yeah,
So
already-
that was nice for them to give us notice.
yeah. Doesn't mean we have to turn around and do that to our businesses.
Right.
Yeah, I don't feel good about
Exactly.
that at all.
Yeah, that stinks.
Correct. And in no way I was suggesting that we stop service
No.
and pass it on to the businesses next month or,
Are we
It's got to be a
locked
transition
in?
period.
correct.
Are we locked in with that company?
No, we're paying month to month.
Okay. Because you did say there was one that was slightly cheaper.
No,
Do
this,
the
the
bid.
$2.50 was the cheaper bid, the least
Least
expensive.
expensive.
The
And
lowest
that's-
bid.
And that's who we're using now.
No,
No,
That's what I'm saying. Can we switch to the le-
No.
lesser
not without a
one?
contract.
not without a contract.
May I ask one more question?
Yes.
So Jimmy's made a request for an accounting from hospitality, but my understanding is these dumpsters are also in rental, hotels.
Yes, ma'am.
Complexes. So, I mean, to the extent that he's looking for an accounting of revenue that could be used to support this, I mean, I think you can look in accommodations taxes as well. We're not, I guess what I'm saying is we don't need to be just in the hospitality lane to find money to pay for this in the interim or for however long we want to. We're not tied just to one fund balance for trash or public works. We can go to accommodations or local or state.
And if I'm mistaken, I don't have my budget in front of me, this is currently paid by tourism funds. I don't know if it's
Not
hospitality or muni aid tax, it may be a combination, but I'd like to just have an offsite conversation to understand your request so that we can fulfill it in terms of what accounting
Right.
is being requested, because we report an accommodation tax revenue every month and hospitality revenue every month,
Right.
and the
Well, I agree with
financial
Mrs.
statement.
Campson that, let's look at all the sources of revenue and all the expenses.
I mean, I was also assuming that it came up as a result of this item, and that they were
Right.
aware of it, and that's why they were asking. If it's not, then, it's good to have anyway, but, it just, that was how I got there.
You coming back?
I thought you were leaving.
Now he's got a comment.
One clarification, and just for everybody to know, you're on a month-to-month, so you're taking a risk that they could go to $3.75. Just so you know.
Right, good point.
So time is of the essence.
After they hear that we're not happy with
Instead
them.
of a new contract with the 250 that you're under contract. And I think, and Amy can clarify it, but that bidder did bid a bid of $3.75, the one we have now, instead of the $3.
Correct. We received it, 4 bids. One was $3.75, which is our current vendor, 2 for $2.50, and a fourth for $2.79. Those were the bids that we received on Friday.
It's complicated. You're right.
Who knew?
Right.
Damn, right.
Desiree, you good?
Yes, sir.
Mostly. Personnel discussion of proposal for 4896-hour shift rotation for the fire department. Chief O, thank you for letting us push this from last meeting, so come along.
Nobody wants to sit with us, but you can sit with us if you want. Oh, guess that's a no.
That's a big
Nobody likes us.
The information's in your packet. There are 5 or 6 slides that lay it out, but no budgetary impact. Currently, we offer a 24-48 shift schedule, which means you work for 24 hours, excuse me, and you're off for 48. That was really the standard here in the Low Country. Over the last 2-3 years, we've had a movement for some departments to go to a 48-96, so 2 days in a row, 4 days off. And when I was first hired here, some of the first things when I had the meetings with our firefighters, our employees, they were asking, hey, what about 48-96? Do you think the city could support it? Would you support it as fire chief? And I said, well, I need to learn more. We need to investigate. And I talked to other fire chiefs, and of course I talked with our city administration, and our employees voted at a clip of, I think it was 84%, that they said, hey, we would like to try 48-96 for a 1-year trial period, see how it goes, evaluate it at the end of that point. And with it being no budgetary impact, that's wonderful. So what are the advantages for us? Your packet details this. It's basically work-life balance and commuting time. Those are the 2 of the big things. Most of our employees live quite a distance away, Monk's Corner, Somerville, Goose Creek. Very few of our employees live close, so it would cut their commuting time in half because they work the same 10 shifts a month, but they would only commute to work 5 times, commute home those other 5 times. Otherwise, they're coming to work 10 times and then returning home 10 times. And as we know, traffic in the Low Country, the price of housing, it's definitely tough out there. Fuel, maintenance on the vehicle, not to mention just the time you sit on the road. So it's definitely difficult. And talking with Ms. Fregoso and talking with our employees, we've looked at ways we can enhance that work-life balance, enhance employee satisfaction. And wages are tough out there. This is a way to put more money in our employees' pockets by their spending less fuel in their vehicle. They can go out further if they want to and live because they don't have to make the commute to work as often. And so they have more affordable housing that is available to them. So I fully support it. I think it'd be a wonderful opportunity for us to demo it, try it, see how it works, and it's driven by our employees. If it does not cut the mustard, they're going to vote and have to have a supermajority at the end of the trial period of 67% or greater. And if they hit that number, we'll continue it. Operationally, nothing really changes for us. The standard and expectation doesn't change. And in fact, when we interview a lot of our candidates, one of the first things they ask is, hey, are y'all considering 4896 or have you thought about it? And so they bring it up to us in the interview portion when it's their opportunity to ask questions. So I definitely think it'd be worthwhile for our retention and recruitment efforts.
And Chief, what's the start date?
We would do January of 2025. So yeah, we would have another vote because it's been a while. It's been about a year. We would lay out our two opportunities for paychecks, how that would lay out, because we have 3 different checks, how they lay out over pay periods, and see what our employees, which route they would like to go. Start it in January, run all the way through December of next year, and put that vote out in December, and they'll tell us, hey, yes, we want to do it, or no, we don't want to do it. And then we'll check in monthly with them and make sure everything's going the way it should go, any concerns, and go from there.
One question, have they, anybody had any questions about the potential for the ability for supplemental income with 96 off? Maybe having like a second job if needed for their family?
So most of our firefighters do have second jobs, or they work a lot of overtime as their second job. So that would, with the work-life balance, in the packet it details that, you're home 5 more mornings a month. You would have that ability to not use your annual leave, for example, if you had a part-time job or something you needed to do because you might be off that Friday, Saturday, Sunday, Monday. There are those weekends where you would work Saturday and Sunday, but those are diminished on the 4896 compared to the 2448 when you're working, maybe the one day you're working Saturday, but if you work Saturday, you're driving home Sunday morning, so you're kind of still here. But yes, it would definitely make it easier for our employees from the feedback that I've gotten from them, from those that have part-time jobs or small businesses. It would make it easier for them to manage those. That's their expectation when they've talked to other firefighters. They've also said the same thing. Yes, sir. So good point, good question.
I support this. I think it's just another effort of the city to support our fire department and facilitate opportunities for the city to retain and recruit people. And you all know I'm all about pilot programs and trying things out and seeing if it works and evaluating any unintended consequences at the end of the trial period. But we wanted to give you all the opportunity to ask questions and us answer them if we do move forward in this direction.
So at the end of the trial period, there'd be another vote?
Yes, ma'am.
And I guess council, though, would have the ultimate
decision?
Yeah.
Yes,
So
ma'am.
that we would know whether they liked it or didn't like it, but if procedurally, for instance, the chief was like, well, would they like it, but I've noticed that, this particular element is, I'm not satisfied with how, I would just want to, job
Correct.
satisfaction is fantastic. I love that part of it. I love the work-life balance, but I just want to make sure that the services we're providing stay at the same level. as
Correct.
well.
That will be, one of our priorities. For it to be budget neutral is another important factor on this. We don't anticipate it being and having any impact, but if we do have significant call-outs, unanticipated, unplanned call-outs, and that requires more overtime, then that may be a potential challenge. We do think and have seen departments that have transitioned to this rotation period having less call-outs and less instances of needing overtime because of the amount of time that people have on a regular basis. But that will be something that we will be evaluating every month, and that'll be part of the factors that we look at before we make a final decision.
So are we going to vote for the first, is this not
Not
tonight?
a
I know,
count,
but
it's not a council
It's not a,
approval to go for a trial.
for a trial, but if it was to go for a full-time, it would be.
Potentially. It's an operational change, which by code, the city administrator is responsible for, as long as with the fire chief. It is a change in the way that we've always done it, so I just want to do it all eyes wide open and just have everybody on council have an opportunity to address
I
questions.
think it's a great idea. Thank you.
It's really just awareness.
Yes, I do have a request now that we have the chief, if if the council is willing to entertain a motion to add an item to the agenda for a report from the chief on the paramedic program.
Sure.
Sure.
Motion to add.
No, we don't vote on anything here.
No.
No, that's right.
I think we just add it.
Just go.
I think we can go, just to,
Just have them go.
for the record, and this could be, we can go back to the departmental reports and
It's an other.
it's an
item.
other items to discuss. Chief, could you please address the status of our paramedic program and the anticipated rollout consistent with the presentations we made to council last year when this was approved?
Absolutely. Yes, we initially last year, which obviously was last year, 12 months ago, we anticipated June 1st would be our rollout date. We're pretty close to that. DHEC came for their second inspection today, and we passed. We did everything we needed to do. Our personnel were phenomenal getting everything together. As you can imagine, it's a pretty big jump going from a basic life support service to advanced life support. And so our medical control physician, one of them, Dr. Sorrell, was there today, along with the DHEC inspector and our training chief, and then our paramedic on duty, making sure we had everything we needed. And it's very, very thorough, very, very detailed. They pull out every single piece of equipment from each bag, check expiration dates, check to make sure everything matches up, and so they leave no stone unturned. So we passed that. We are currently waiting on 2 medications for pain management, and then we're waiting on 1 piece of equipment. It's an intraosseous drill that will drill into the bone to provide medications if you cannot find a vein and you can't go the venous route. And so once those are on order, once we receive those, then DHEC said that we'll be live and ready to go. So we anticipate mid-July, might be a little bit before that, and then we'll be, ready to go. But right now, we're just at the mercy of the manufacturer and the delivery date. But everything looks on target with the 2 medications, and then that last piece of equipment. So I'm really proud of our people. It's a no small feat to do what they have done in a short amount of time with our training chief, Chief Brian Toohey, and our 3 firefighter paramedics. So you have a lot of people that are high quality, doing a lot of great things across all
So we're
departments.
a few weeks delayed from our original target from last year due to all the requirements that we have to go through in
Correct.
order to secure all the licenses that we need to have.
Yes, we have a DEA license we had to get, so that was a couple different visits they have to perform, lots of paperwork involved with that our medical control physicians have to sign. We have to fax certain things, mail certain things. DHEC has to do multiple inspections. So there are, quite a few moving pieces.
Thank you, Chief.
And Chief, I know we're still looking for 3. Any update on additional staffing at this point, interviews or potential offers?
So we reached out to Janice to schedule. We had 1 come in, so I gave Janice some dates this week for us to interview that candidate. So we're waiting to hear back from them once she reaches out. So.
And Chief, some of the feedback that you've received from potential candidates makes one to believe that once the city rolls out the program, that'll be the incentive to some of these potential candidates to actually submit an application, wanting to know that the city is
Once it's
moving
live,
forward with
yeah.
the paramedic program before they submit. Is that correct?
Absolutely, yeah. I've talked to a few people, and they have questions. Hey, when are you starting? They want to make sure that our city council, our staff, and the fire department is committed to the paramedic program. So once we have it up and running, we'll make sure that Chandra helps us with the media push, and we create awareness. And I think that will also help with the recruitment efforts.
Done with questions.
Can you talk about the scheduling? If we're not fully staffed, how will the paramedics be scheduled?
So as of now, we would just operate as we're operating. If one paramedic is off, we would offer overtime for that other paramedic to come in on one of the other shifts to fill that slot. Right now, they're responsible for getting, all employees in the fire department are responsible for getting their own coverage. They do duty exchanges and different creative things like that. once we have 2 paramedics per shift, we'll have a little more resiliency. We do have the ability to not operate as an ALS service for about 84 days out of the year. DHEC grants that because they realize with staffing that sometimes it's just impossible. You just can't make it happen. So you may be down for an hour or two. You might be down for 24 hours. They realize that. So we also have that option. Obviously, that's not the route we would want to go. But that's how we'll stand up the program. And I think once we stand up the program, again, once it's live, we'll have more opportunity for recruitment.
And so, right now, when you get fully operational, there'll be at least one paramedic on duty every day.
Correct. Let's say if a paramedic is out sick, and then, or let's say 2 paramedics are out sick, and we only have one, we might not be operational on one of those days or 2 of those days potentially.
But barring any kind of emergency or unforeseen circumstance.
Yes, ma'am.
It'll be regularly scheduled. Thank you. That's great. That's terrific news.
Yeah. Chief,
you,
thank
Chief.
you. Yeah, appreciate the insight.
I don't want the bone drill.
Oh.
I don't want the bone drill.
Deborah,
Unless I'm in a
financial
lottery.
statements. Amy, can you back up one page, please? Thank you.
Good evening, everyone. We are almost done with our fiscal year. So we're 11 months in, and we have, as far as the general fund, we have a little bit of ground to make up, but of course, we will make that up because we are missing 3 months of tourism funds, which we'll see later on when we review the tourism schedules. Our capital project, that is just the transfers that would normally appear in, from year-end transfers. We, of course, did some. Get closer, Amy's. Is that better? Okay. We, of course, moved we delayed some things to FY '25, so, of course, the forecast is a little bit less than what we said that we were going to budget. Our muni funds, it's the same thing. We're still missing April, May, and June of the muni accommodation tax, as well as the first and second quarter of the pass-through tax. Now, we were supposed to receive it in May. We received it in June, so we did receive $60,000, which was a little bit less than last year this time, and we'll see that when we review the schedules as well. Same thing with hospitality. We are actually have met and exceeded our hospitality budget, and we have 1 more month to go, so we're doing really well with hospitality taxes. State aid taxes, we are, again, 3 missing, April, May, and June, quarter end. Beach preservation, the same thing. I want to talk a little bit about the general fund. Like I said, with the revenue, that's mostly the tourism tax that we haven't received yet. That's also some of the other licenses that we receive, like the insurance licenses and the public utility licenses from Dominion. The insurance is normally about $900,000, and Dominion Energy has been in the past about $600,000. So we should be receiving those, as well as some other funds that have been delayed and normally don't get here until June. So
Now, to put us right on budget or a little over for that line.
That's correct.
Yeah.
Oh, good.
As far as expenses, we're right there at 92%, which is where we should be. And some of the things that, of course, are reflecting our unfavorable variance to show that we will be over budget is, of course, our payroll costs, which mostly is contributing to the increased wages, as well as workers' comp and health insurance increases. Some of the other liners are the vehicle maintenance costs for public works, and our legal fees are a little high. We are at about $44 million in cash, with cash and investment, in the investment accounts, which is really good. The interest rate did go back up a little bit, so we're at 5.5252 versus the 5.5234. So that equated to $197,000 just for the month of May.
Interest income.
Interest income, yes. On our cash balances, this is the schedule that shows the current cash balances compared to what we have budgeted for FY '24, and what has been spent already, and then some of the larger projects that are coming up for FY '25. We still, of course, have those larger amounts on there, and when the budget is approved, those amounts we'll still owe them, but they're probably still staying here because they're not happening until FY '26, I think, right?
Some.
Yeah. So there still show that we will be using some of those funds, but not in those large dollar amounts. They will be spread out over leases. For our tourism schedules, the $59,000 is what we received for the month of May. That is a large increase compared to the $24,000 we received the same time last year. For a state accommodation tax, we have not received anything for the last quarter, of course. That will come in probably not until July or probably August. So we will wait on those and accrue that amount, and hopefully it's around the same thing that we received last year. As I was saying, the county pass-through, we did receive the $60,716 in June. It wasn't here in May, so that will put us, that dropped our decrease from a negative 4% to a negative 3%. So we're still a little bit behind on that. Hospitality taxes, we are doing very well. Well, we're doing well, not very well. We at
10% increase is pretty well.
Yeah, that's really well. That's really well.
We'll see. We'll see where we end. But yeah, they are much higher than they were last year. 142 this time last year compared to 143, which is a nice increase. Our beach preservation, same thing. We're still 5% behind. We collected $59,000 compared to 24 and same time last year. This is where we're 3 months behind. We did collect 102 in the month of May compared to 97,000, but we still are missing, April, May, and then of course June of this year, this month. So we will probably see those funds come in. Maybe August is probably when we'll finally get the last bit of those. So we'll record them when they come in. As far as the project schedules, of course, you can see the what has been added and the money that we've spent for each project for the month of May. If you have any questions, just let me know.
Questions for Deborah? All good. Deborah, thank you. Couple of procurement items that we'll vote on next week, but just for quick highlights. Discussion of proposal from Trident Construction to develop conceptual design and cost of options for relocation of City Hall. This went through Public Services Committee, and Trident's been directed to come back with two options, looking at Public Works area or Public Safety area. So Desiree, anything to add there?
Just to clarify, they've already looked at the feasibility of a relocation to the Public Works area. The proposal that's included in your packet for $17,000 would include them looking at the feasibility and cost estimates of relocating City Hall either in Lot B, which is a large lot across Pavilion Drive, and looking at connecting City Hall to the existing public safety building on Front Beach.
Interesting.
Next one is discussion of approval of allocation of $25,000 for purchase and
May I
installation.
ask one question? Sorry, may I
yes.
ask one question?
Yes.
I thought the lots were deed restricted for, would we, for
we-
beach parking?
Yes, we talked about the restrictions that were placed on that lot when the city purchased it through some grant funding. It does require the parking lot to be used for recreational purposes and for public access. So part of the challenge with an option to relocate to that location would be not only maintaining the existing parking spaces, but potentially increasing it to account for the additional uses. So we are aware, and that's a big downside of that option, whether or not we're able to lift those deed restrictions or have an option that complies with those.
We said same thing with Lot B when you built the public safety building.
Lot A, you mean, the
Lot A,
small
yeah,
one?
Excuse me, yeah, the little one.
I think they released Lot A so we could do that, and then they brought in Lot B, is what happened.
There was something, hoops we had to jump through, I remember, but it
Yeah,
was.
they did a swap,
it
but at
was-
this point, we've already kind of built out, and I'd hate to keep nicking away at that, really.
All right, next item, discussion of approval of allocation of $25,000 for purchase and installation of holiday decorations coming out of the Muni A-tax budget.
Yes, so last year, you may recall, we installed some red bows on every light post on Palm Boulevard between 21st and 41st. Believe it or not, we were highly criticized by the quality and the condition of the red bows, despite our great effort to be festive. So we have some monies available in the municipal accommodation tax, and we would like to purchase some type of display that would be attached to the light post on Palm Boulevard, including also looking at opportunities from Breach Inlet to 14th. I think people enjoy the flags that we put during the summer, and it would just be another effort to be festive during the holiday season.
Thought your bows looked nice.
Can I make a small suggestion?
Sure.
As far as the flags next year, since it's right around Carolina Days when they were put up, would you consider every other flag being a South Carolina flag?
We can certainly
Yeah.
look into that.
Yeah, I think-
Carolina Day's a big deal.
I think the focus is really Memorial Day and 4th of July.
That's right, that was our
At the high
intent.
level, but
We could get one South Carolina flag,
we got one right now, right outside the building.
a little one.
Not in the public right away,
I want to put it right here. No, not the public right away.
Next item, capital projects update, Desiree.
All right.
A lot going on.
A lot going on, so please indulge me. So the drainage project at 41st Avenue, hopefully you've seen, it's mostly completed. We just have the installation of handrails, trash racks, and gates. It looks really, really nice. We have installed the parking stops along the ditch, newly covered ditch, and PCI, municipal PCI, it has ordered the pay-to-park signs that are going to be placed there and the extra spaces in the shared lot. So that should be completed in the next few weeks. In addition, the 41st Avenue outfall will include a fence along the lease line of the employee lot that's under lease by the restaurant, separating it from the newly covered ditch. So that'll be installed hopefully next week. We talked about the Waterway Boulevard multi-use path earlier with Thomas and Hutton. We don't have any update from SCEMD on the city's FEMA hazard mitigation grant program that was submitted last year. Palm Boulevard, that's our next project, Phase 4. This is Palm Boulevard between 38th and 41st. We had a meeting with Thomas and Hutton yesterday to discuss high-level concepts for that. There is potential challenges with all of the utilities that are already underground on the right-of-way, both the land side and the ocean side. They think they can squeeze it in. Ideally, we move out of the road so that there's no need to open up and have to repave the road. The only potential challenge with that is the line or the area that would be available is right under where the line of palm trees are. So we may be required to relocate some of those palm trees, maybe not along the same line as the rest of the palm trees on Palm Boulevard. We don't, I mean, it would be a huge expense if we have to then move all of the infrastructure to the road rather than on the right-of-way. So we're trying to figure out how to mitigate it, but it may end up being that some of these palm trees will have to be relocated and new ones installed in a different location along that section. But more to come on that. On the sea level rise adaptation plan, Seaman Whiteside have been doing meetings with stakeholder groups, including the Planning Commission and the Environmental Advisory Committee. They'll be soon coming before this group. They have prepared a community engagement survey, which will be released in, it says June, but it will be released in July with our next edition of our newsletter. The public dock and green space. Framing and decking is in progress. This is an active construction zone, and it has construction and caution tape all around it, so there should be no activity or swimming or fishing in that construction site. We just received an updated project schedule from the contractor. We anticipate most of the work being completed by July, and the swings that are going to be placed in the covered areas along the 16 wide-foot pier is what's on back order. We anticipate getting those between August and September, but that's really potentially the delay along with the floating dock. Our plan is to, once the pier and the handrails and the covered areas are finished, to potentially open the public dock for pedestrian use and then phase in the installation of the gangway and the floating dock and the swings when they get in. So more to come on that. We're trying to speed up as much as we can this project. Let's see. Beach access path improvements. Our plan is for 4 access paths to be improved by either ADA compliant boardwalks or footbridges. We are going out for bid for the construction of ADA compliant boardwalks at 46 and 52nd Avenue. We do not have any ADA boardwalks on that stretch of Palm Boulevard, so that'll be our path. As you all know, we have $500,000 from the state in FY24 that we will use for that construction. And then 26A and 36A, it's not feasible for them to be ADA compliant, but we will improve the beach access path and anticipate seeking funding from the Greenbelt program, which is the same program that funded 34A. Under beach maintenance and restoration, we talked about the shoal management project. We had to do some emergency beach restoration work on the breach inlet side last week. We are also waiting on the delivery of 10 extra sandbags for Beachwood East, and we anticipate that being done in the next couple of weeks. On the Army Corps of Engineers beneficial use project, we met with the contractor today. They have started mobilizing at Sullivan's Island. Their trailers and workspaces. We're working with them and DOT to have them use some portion of the breach inlet parking lot for some of their equipment. Once they have mobilized here, they indicated, they said today 60 days between the time where they start clearing the vegetation along the intercoastal side of where the sand is being borrowed from or used from, to the time that we see sand on the beach. So that's the latest, 60 days between the time that they start. As you all know, the city's waiting on the permit for the supplemental work that we want to do to use some of that sand to restore the dune and the dry sand beach. We have not received those permits. We are going out for bid to secure a contractor to do that work in the next few weeks and presenting a recommendation to council in July for approval. We'll have to wait until the Army Corps of Engineers project ends before the city can do the proposed supplemental work. And then the other thing I wanted to highlight, we've talked about the City Hall renovation. The undergrounding power lines, as y'all know, the next project will be at 14th Avenue. We're undergrounding all of those power lines. And that project, we've heard that Dominion Energy has secured the easements, and we've given the go-ahead for construction to be scheduled for the week after Labor Day. Mayor Pounds had requested that the Public Services and Facilities Committee look at the list of potential projects for undergrounding utility lines. We had a list of 5 projects that we have been working towards. 2 will be done hopefully by the end of this year, but I think that there is a desire to review and evaluate the prioritization that was done a few years ago and identify whether there's an additional projects that we could consider. But you can see how long sometimes these projects take.
Sometimes? You're being kind, yeah.
That's all I have unless anybody has any questions about any of these projects.
Good update, thank you. No legislative report. Our next city council workshop scheduled for July. I would propose we would take July off. That's our first month of our fiscal year. There's not really a lot to report. We'll still put out financial reports, capital project updates. If we need to have a council meeting, we'll do that, but I would propose we take.
Second.
Now, Blair, you know we don't go to workshops.
We used to take off a month in the summer every year anyway, either June or July or August. But not August usually, but June or July. August, like we were about hurricane season. I have one quick note on miscellaneous, if I may. Carter report, Memorial Day weekend, ridership was up over 85% over this time last year. Although this time last year, we had a really dreadful weather conditions. But it is off to a good start, and they're pushing it really hard. As you know, we had a 92% increase of 23 over 22. So we're off to a good start for 24 with an 85% increase in that one weekend.
That's terrific.
No further business.
Motion to